The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. Lost together, we discovered ourselves again. And we realized that the things that matter deserve time.
That looks good.
From now on, we're not going to leave anything on our plates. Because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there. And they never tasted this good.
At Forward US, we're focused on fixing the failed immigration and criminal justice systems that have locked too many out of the American dream for too long, holding us all back. Our immigration system was designed in the middle of the last century. We need one that leads America well into the 21st century. Founded by business and tech leaders, Forward US is a bipartisan team working to create a stronger America. We bring people together from across the aisle to break through partisan gridlock and create an immigration system that fits the need of the modern Georgia economy, Georgia families, and spurs growth and innovation. Having an immigration system that works is vital to attracting talent and investments, and tuition equity for dreamers is a crucial piece of that puzzle. We all win when businesses can hire the workers they need and help the economy stay strong. Together, we can ensure that Georgia will continue to be the #1 state in which to do business. It is an honor to work beside Georgia leaders during this critical moment.
We will get through this with hard work and long hours, by keeping our distance while keeping in touch, by traveling less and moving more. You do your part by staying home, and we'll do our part to keep the lights on, providing you with reliable energy and giving you more ways to use it efficiently. We know home means more now than ever. Count on us to be here so you can be there.
Good morning, muy buenos días. I am Mariela Romero of Univision 34 Atlanta, and it is my pleasure to welcome you today to the 2020 Latino Prosperity Conference. First of all, I would like to thank the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for coming together in 2020 to present this timely conference. Today, we will be looking closely at the impact of the pandemic and the economic fallout on Georgia's Latino population, and at how Latinos are playing a key role in bringing Georgia's economy back to life. We are looking at this through the lens of prosperity and focus on solutions and moving forward after a very difficult year. We will be welcomed by the leaders of the LAA and the GHCC. Then Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will follow as the opening speaker. The conference will feature a plenary panel that will offer a big picture view of how Latinos in Georgia have been affected by the current crisis, moderated by my colleague Ivan Shamas of Telemundo Atlanta, followed by a panel on workforce development and a panel on entrepreneurship. Since we are in an election year, we also wanted to highlight the importance of Latino voters. I had the pleasure of conducting one-on-one interviews with the candidates for 2 Senate races that are taking place on November 3rd. We will close with our keynote speaker, Juan Perez, the Chief Information and Engineering Officer at UPS. We want to extend a special thank you to all the conference sponsors for all they do to support the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Our presenting sponsor is the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. Our platinum sponsors are the Coca-Cola Company and UPS. Our gold sponsors, Delta Airlines and Georgia Power. Silver sponsors, the Buckhead Rotary Club, Cox Enterprises, the Libre Initiative, Forward US, and JP Morgan Chase. Ambassador sponsors, AT&T, the City of Brookhaven, CareSource, Comcast, and Winnet Kaiser Permanente. And last but not least, we are grateful to our media sponsors, Telemundo Atlanta and Univisión 34 Atlanta, for coming together to sponsor this conference. We will start off by introducing the leaders of the LAA and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It is now my pleasure to welcome the LAA's CEO, Santiago Marquez.
Hi, I'm Santiago Marquez, CEO of the Latin American Association. Welcome to the 2020 Latino Prosperity Conference, presented by the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. This year was an incredible year. 2020 really turned our lives upside down. I have the unique perspective of being both at the Chamber when the year started and now being at the LAA, being able to see the work that was being done from a business perspective, as we had business owners all over the state leading the efforts in educating the community to wear masks, to keep distance socially, and to make sure that everybody knew how to get tested and where to get tested, to now coming to the LAA and being on the front lines as our team and our staff fights every day to make sure that people stay in their homes, get the benefits that they need, get the food that they need, and try to help them find employment, as well as help with the young people to make sure that they're getting educated, going to school, whether that's virtually or in person. So I'm really proud of the work that's being done. Today we've got amazing speakers, everyone from the Governor Kemp, to Juan Perez, who's the CIO of UPS, a Fortune 50 company. And Juan is going to talk to us about innovation and technology and how we need to change our approach to business so that we can thrive. After we survive this pandemic, we need to really be thinking about thriving and going forward. So I know that you're in for a real treat. I do want to take a minute to thank our sponsors, the presenting sponsor, Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, our platinum sponsors, the Coca-Cola Company and UPS, our gold sponsors, Delta and Georgia Power. We couldn't do this work without you. It's an honor that you support us, and we're looking forward to a great conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Muchísimas gracias, Santiago. Now, please join me in welcoming the interim president and CEO of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Gabriel Vaca.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Vaca, interim president and CEO of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to the 2020 Latino Prosperity Conference, a roadmap for Georgia's recovery. I want to thank our sponsors that provided financial support for this conference. The Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is now 36 years old and has been here in this community to support and help Hispanic businesses by providing education and access to resources. During this COVID-19 crisis, our chamber has provided daily information via Facebook Lives and Zooms regarding health and wellness, federal and local grants and financial information, as well as food and testing information. In addition, we have been able to provide local and federal governmental information regarding reopening your business safely. We have teamed up with the Latin American Association to present to you the 2020 Latino Prosperity Conference that will examine what the future looks like for businesses and their families. This in light of their contributions to the economy, COVID-19 crisis, as well as the economic crisis. I truly believe that together we are stronger. Doing this event together with the LAA is a milestone for our organizations, since we always want to look at Latinos holistically from a social services and business perspective. And that is what we are examining in this conference. Thank you again to our sponsors, and thank you to my GHCC team and the LAA team for all the hard work on putting this conference together. Thank you.
To open the conference, it is an honor for me to introduce Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, a husband, father, businessman, and public servant. On November 6, 2018, he was elected as Georgia's 83rd governor, earning more votes than any gubernatorial candidate in state history. Governor Kemp built his first business, Kemp Development and Construction Company, with a pickup truck and a shovel. Over 30 years later, he is a successful entrepreneur with business and investments in banking, farming, timber, manufacturing, and real estate. From the backhoe to the boardroom, Governor Kemp understands how to successfully create jobs, grow companies, recruit startups, and make deals on the international stage, while also providing opportunities for hundreds of hardworking Georgians. Please join me in welcoming Governor Brian Kemp.
This is Governor Brian Kemp. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person, but it is an honor to address the attendees of this year's Latino Prosperity Conference. These are challenging times for our state and nation. At the beginning of 2020, our state was fresh off a historic year. Unemployment was at record lows, job growth was strong, businesses were thriving, and Georgia had just been named the #1 state for business once again. None of us could have predicted that we would soon face a global pandemic that threatened lives and livelihoods. But even in the toughest moments of our fight with COVID-19, the fundamentals that made our state a nationwide leader for jobs and investment remain strong. And thanks to our measured approach to the pandemic, fighting for people and their paychecks, we continue to share exciting news every week. Our current unemployment rate sits at 5.6%, well below the national average. In the first quarter of the fiscal year, we've announced the creation of more than 10,000 jobs. And just a few weeks ago, we announced that Georgia has once again been named the top state for business for the 7th year in a row. In addition to that ranking, our workforce development programs earn national recognition. This is all great news, but we will not rest on our laurels. We have to remain focused on protecting lives and livelihoods. And great organizations like the Latin American Association are key partners in these efforts. The Latino community in Georgia is large and vibrant, totaling nearly 10% of our state's population. They make up a vital part of our workforce, one of the most prepared and available in the country. And I am so grateful for all your association does to create opportunity for all. As we move forward together, I'm asking Georgians from all walks of life to do their part to keep our state on the right track. Continue to heed the guidance of public health officials. Follow best practices. Patronize the local businesses who are working hard to keep people safe, and encourage your loved ones to do the same. We have made great progress, and by working together to keep our community safe and healthy, we can continue to revive our economy. Together, we will ensure that Georgia's best days still lie ahead. Thank you, and God bless, and I hope you have a great conference.
Thank you, Governor Kemp, for your remarks and for being part of this important conference, Georgia, and focusing on Georgia's Latino families. Thank you to Santiago Marquez with the Latin American Association, as well as Gabriel Vaca with the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and everybody behind the scenes that has come together to put this type of program and offering so that all of us have access to it, can learn and support our community together. As a board chair of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I'm personally excited because this is a first-time collaboration of the two nonprofits coming together so that we can make a larger impact within our state and within our community. So that's extremely exciting. This is a virtual conference where we are going to dig in and examine what future prosperity might look like for Georgia's Latino families in light of everything that's happened with COVID, the economic crisis, all that has affected us in this unprecedented year, if you will. So we've brought together a star-studded panel, various stakeholders to speak and address the challenges that our Latino community is confronting, as well as the urgent issues that we should focus on so that we can continue this journey, this roadmap of recovery for our state. And so with that said, I want everybody to keep in mind the goal of this conversation is to be proactive, positive. Let's have a fun, open discussion that generates ideas, solutions that will continue to lift our communities and our entire state. So before we begin, I think I've already reviewed, before I make the introductions of our distinguished panelists, I've reviewed that we're gonna keep this within 45 minutes. We're gonna ask 2 to 3 questions. I'm gonna ask that the studio audience holds their applause, except for right this moment when we welcome the 4 panelists who are joining us today. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with, ladies first, Dr. Audrey Arora, who's the CEO and District Health Director of Gwinnett, Newton, and Rockdale County Health Departments. She leads the largest health district in Georgia with 1.3 million individuals. Most of these are actually in the county of Gwinnett. Gwinnett actually has more Hispanics than any other county in Georgia. So Dr. Arora, thank you for being here with us, and we're excited to chat with you. I also want to introduce Cynthia Roman Hernandez, who is with the Latin American Association. She is the managing director of Family Stabilization and Well-Being. And she's been in this role for 10 years. She's a social worker with experience in various settings, everything from Puerto Rico to New York to our state. She's got her PhD in social work. And we're excited to have her because we want to dive into how this has affected our Latino families. Moving on, we have the president of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce with us, Mr. Chris Clark. Thank you for joining us. He's actually a native Georgian. He's been here all of his life, did his undergrad, his master's here as well. Georgia Chamber is one of the largest in the country, and they represent over 50,000 members and a lot of small businesses across our state. Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has a unique, beautiful partnership with the Georgia Chamber. We're actually homed in their offices as well in downtown Atlanta. So thank you, Chris, for being part of this conversation. And of course, last but not least, Jason Esteves, chair of the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education, elected to the board in 2013, first Latino elected to a school board in Georgia, and the only Latino chair right now serving on a school district in the state. Atlanta Public Schools, so you know, is the sixth largest school district in the state. 7% of the student body is Hispanic. Jason as well is a native Georgian. He serves on the LAA board. He's an attorney, a VP with Equifax, and we are honored to have you as well, Jason. So we're going to transition into the questions, and with that, if there's something I missed or something you'd like to share, please open up your comments with that. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the big picture, our state. So we're going to take the first question in conversation to Chris Clark over at the Georgia Chamber. Chris, a lot's happened, I think, since we last connected as well. Obviously, COVID has turned our state and our country upside down. Can you paint a picture of where Georgia is realistically, economy-wise, and what you've seen as you've talked to businesses across the state.
Sure. Well, thanks, Ivan. Thanks for having me today, and I appreciate you guys putting on this summit and including the Georgia Chamber in this discussion. Obviously, Georgia's been hit very hard, just like the rest of the country, over the last 6 months. The good news is that Georgia's economy is much more diverse than it was in 2009. So we are seeing a faster rebound. I think we're going to be further ahead than many of our other Southeast Chamber, Southeastern U.S. Economies. There are a couple of areas, though, that I am concerned about, and I think it's worth having the discussion, particularly because I believe it impacts the Latino population. There's two economic sectors that really, when you look at the data in Georgia and across the country, were hit worse than any other sector, and it's going to take longer for them to recover. The first is in the hospitality sector. I mean, listen, in April and May, you had almost 50% of all hospitality jobs in the country were wiped out. For Zoomers, over 80% of all Zoomers, that's the new generation, right? Generation Z, almost 70% of them lost all their jobs during that same sector. It's an important part of Georgia's economy, particularly you add in organizations, our restaurants, our hotels. We're in for a long slog there for those to come back. It's going to take time for particularly for the convention business to come back in the state. And then the other sector that I'm continue to worry about is in retail. Nationwide, we had 250,000 retail facilities closed during the early days of the pandemic. Most of those have recovered in Georgia. 91% of our retail establishments have reopened, but because of the shift of consumer activity and behavior over to online platforms, we're going to see about 100,000 retail closures in the U.S. in the next 36 months. So for those folks that have those small mom and pop retail, they're really going to take this on the chin, and I'm concerned about them. Right now, as we talk in Georgia, we've got about 22% of our businesses haven't reopened. I told you we got about 9% of retail haven't reopened, but almost a quarter of our restaurants are still closed. 20% of arts and entertainment are still closed. 40% of our bars are still closed, and then about 20% of our personal, health and beauty facilities are still closed. So we've got a lot of work to do. And again, particularly a lot of those industries impact our essential workers in the Latino population. So I'm bullish on where we're going, but I'm concerned about those two sectors as we talk today.
Okay. Grateful for that update, man. And thank you for digging into it. But yeah, we've definitely seen the effect on restaurants as well as other businesses. Zoomers are a concern, as you mentioned, and retail. So let's transition, because we are going to come back to you, Chris, and
Sure.
dive a little bit further into that. But I do want to get into the health component of it. So Dr. Arona, again, thank you for being with us. Can you tell us what you've seen, being on the front lines, working with several counties, and how this has affected our Latino community, but also why disproportionately it has affected us more?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for including me in this conversation. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm honored to be here in addition to that. And yes, Gwinnett County is second right now in the state with over 27,000 cases. In terms of the number of cases, right behind Fulton County, of course. We're a very populous state, or county, which matters. Our deaths have maintained, the third in the state, which is great. Despite, our rising cases, our deaths have maintained that third spot. And as you said, Gwinnett County is represented by 22% of its population is Latino, and 27% of the Gwinnett County cases have been in the Latino population. And why is that? Primarily, it's because this virus affects individuals with chronic medical conditions, heart disease, including heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, that type of thing. And those people are more at risk for more severe disease. They're also more likely to be hospitalized and more likely to require respiratory assistance like ventilators. But in addition to that, this virus also affects the parts of our county that are more densely populated. So, Latinos enjoy lots of family, often multi-generational supportive living conditions, which is one of the reasons why, Latinos are more affected by this for sure. And, also we can't forget that more diverse populations also have a harder time accessing healthcare, and they're more likely to be underinsured or uninsured. So a really good thing at this point is to really encourage our businesses to provide health insurance to employees. And in reality, this really preserves their workforce because, having a healthier, more managed and controlled medical problems, that type, they're a lot less likely to be affected by COVID and other diseases. And so that's primarily where we are. Yes, sir.
Okay, good update. And we're going to definitely dive into solutions and what we can do as individuals to weather the storm right now. So thank you for that, Dr. Arona. I do want to transition now into education. We are Latinos. We have multiple children and they need some support. We may not be able to be home with them. Virtual learning is big, but I do want to take it to Jason and get his take on it. How prepared were schools, or are schools even now, for COVID? And we know the education gaps already that Latinos are affected by. So how is this just piggybacking off of that? And what have you seen talking to parents and within your district?
Yeah, Ivan, and thank you so much for having me. Look, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that school districts are more prepared today than they were back in March. Back in March, school districts literally had to become virtual overnight. And in Atlanta Public Schools, we did so in about 48 hours. We announced that we were closing, and our teachers had 48 hours to prepare our families. And that was extremely difficult. And the spring semester was a tough semester to close out. I had a pre-K-er, and I can tell you that we were struggling through virtual learning. That has been different in the fall semester, where we had the summer to prepare, and we made an early announcement on July 13th that we were going to be virtual for the first 9 weeks. And we prepared our school system, we prepared our parents and our students in particular to be virtual ready. And for Atlanta Public Schools, that meant making sure that kids had devices, that they had hotspots if they didn't have internet. It meant making sure that they were getting meals, making sure that they were getting their basic needs met. And it took a lot of effort, but I think the response that we're receiving from families is much more positive this semester than it was the next semester. Now, the bad news is that this pandemic is unpredictable, and we don't know where it's going. So as a school system, just like all the metro school districts, we've had to adjust plans as it relates to return to school, as it relates to what the rest of the semester looks like. And we're trying to do that to address inequities, as you mentioned, Ivan, that were present before the pandemic and are worse today. And that's something we all have to acknowledge, that all of the inequities that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, whether it was education, health, they're worse. They're exacerbated by the pandemic. So we fully anticipate that if our students were to take the milestones test, that they would be even further behind. The gaps would be bigger today than they were just 6 months ago. And we've seen some hard evidence on that just in college admissions. My friend Tina Fernandez with Achieve Atlanta, who's a great partner to Atlanta Public Schools, who monitors higher education, noted on social media that there was a study that came out that showed that low-income families, many of those families being Black and brown families, were less likely to enroll in college than their wealthier counterparts. So during this pandemic, wealthier people continued doing what they were doing, and they were more likely to enroll in college this time around, and low-income families were not. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done from pre-K through 12, but also in higher ed as it relates to education in the pandemic.
Unbelievable. We don't even realize the ramifications this is going to have in years from now. I mean, we're already now, our numbers are lower when it comes to applying for colleges as they were, but now even lower because of what's going on. Jason, great update, man, and we're definitely going to be coming back to you as well. with some further details. I do want to take it into the family realm, if you will. Cynthia Roman Hernandez, the social impact of this health pandemic and the economic crisis, because you've been out there and you've seen it for the past several months. But tell us what Latino families are going through as relates through your eyes and through what the Latin American Association is seeing.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank everybody for being part of this. It has been a nonstop crisis from the beginning. Since March 16, we started to provide services remotely to our families, and we have become first responders as well. All our case managers providing first aid and support to these families that have never been in this situation before. At the beginning of the pandemic was all related to economic issues, loss of jobs, for law, people reducing hours. And then later on, when the reopening started, we see more in the summer, we see more cases on people getting infected. And so it has been crisis, and crisis mode all the time. We have been providing support. 75% of our families before COVID, they get stable in 90 days. That was our something that we achieved with them. But now with the pandemic, it's harder and harder and longer the process of stability for them, because there's so much and so complex, all these issues that they are experiencing. And sometimes they are, and obviously the mental health side of it, they are on so much stress. Some of our families have experienced depression, anxiety attacks, insomnia, because they don't know what is going on. So it has been really difficult, and many of them not able to work for many months, not able to put food under the table. We have been providing food distribution events. We have been providing clothing, rental assistance, financial assistance, collaborate with many organizations to be able to support these families. But definitely it has been, it's taking a big toll on this community. And it's just exposed pre-existing problems that already exist in this community. Some of them had mentioned already: lack of insurance, lack of health access, and housing issues. Not able to have a permanent job, a stable income. So some things that already exist, but with this crisis, it's exacerbate everything for them.
Wow, yeah, that's a big list. And what I was going to ask is there one that you're seeing more need for? You've mentioned everything from housing to food, and I know that the LAA and even Telemundo have partnered up with multiple food drives. But what are you seeing is maybe the top two big needs, while there's a big list?
So it's a complex situation, because it's like a snowball.
Right.
So start with income issues, not having money to pay their bills, to pay out their rent, and they are not having any safety nets. They are not getting any benefits from the stimulus checks on employment. They are not eligible. Most of our families are immigrant. They are not eligible for many benefits that other families receive. So that creates another issue, because there's safety nets to support them. So basically, it's just been, I think that the income side of it, and then the healthcare side of it, not being able to, this persisting conditions that already exist, it just create like the perfect storm to just not being able to stabilize the situation more quickly. So, but yeah.
Well, then I'm glad you mentioned that. And while we're kind of setting the table and talking about the current situation with everyone, we're certainly going to get into what we can do to make things prosper and focus on the positives of it. But yes, you mentioned income as one of the big obstacles that our families are going through, which relates into rent relief. Do we really even have access to that? I know there are multiple programs out there that I do want to get into, but you also mentioned healthcare, which is a big part of it. So let me take it back to Dr. Arona and chat a little bit further about health, if that's okay. And maybe you can elaborate, Dr. Arona, on how Latinos are more likely than their peers to be uninsured. So how does this present larger problems, and how can more Latinos even push to get healthcare? As you mentioned earlier, trying to get healthcare health insurance is a big part of it.
Right, and you're absolutely right about that. And I think you know, having access to health insurance is a huge issue here. And I do believe that businesses can help out a lot with this in providing health insurance options to their employees, which obviously, like I said, will lead to a healthier workforce and a sustained workforce as well. What's important is, you know, there are a lot of healthcare resources available to the Latino population through the health department that I think sometimes often they don't reach to us as a first resource. So, you know, I would encourage our services, agencies like ours at the health department to really be a go-to for the Latino population. You know, this is a crisis. This is, you know, a pandemic, and you know, I think we can utilize this as an opportunity to create richer and deeper relationships between the health department and the Latino population. It's truly a time for all of us to really recognize the importance of health, right? Because, and the necessity of diagnosing chronic diseases that oftentimes don't have symptoms until you go. So that's a big part of this. And then also the need for ongoing management of those chronic health conditions and ensuring, again, physician access and to medical insurance, of course. But, you know, our agency wants to help bridge that gap with the Latino population and also to be a resource that they not think of lastly, but think of first. And it's important, I think, for us to understand, not just to understand the Latino culture, but to be part of that culture and make it part of our own, which is really where prosperity enters.
I love it. Thank you for saying that. Be part of our culture as well, so we can all support each other. Health is a big part of it, and it takes us back to now the homes with virtual learning in schools. And Jason, let me bring it to you. With distant learning in place, can you talk about how virtual learning has it been working? Has it had its obstacles? And what have we learned in our state as far as digital learning during a pandemic?
Well, there are a couple things that we've learned. To answer your first question, is it working? That answer is yes, relatively, generally working. But we know that we aren't reaching everyone, and school districts across the state are not reaching everyone if they are virtual. So we've learned a couple lessons. One is that we can provide quality education virtually. So that is a good thing, because public education systems, school districts were shy to go into the virtual space, and we were forced to do that in the pandemic. So one of the positives is that I don't see virtual learning going away in the future. I think that school districts will provide families with an option to stay virtual for their child's educational career. So I think that's a new innovation that came along that won't go anywhere. But we've also seen that access is a big issue. And in Atlanta Public Schools, we made sure that everyone got laptops or an iPad. We made sure that if you didn't have internet, we got you a hotspot. But that's not the case for a lot of school systems. And some school systems either didn't have the resources to do that, or didn't even ask to see which students needed laptops or which students needed access. So what we've learned is that as a state, as school systems, we need to consider these equity issues and keep them top of mind when things like this happen, so that we can help provide students with the resources they need to obtain an education, no matter what the circumstance. And that goes beyond Atlanta. It goes beyond Metro Atlanta. I know Chris knows this. In rural Georgia, there is a need for broadband internet, and there has been partnerships that have been formed to help provide that. But we know that there's a long way to go before virtual learning can actually become a thing. Right now, it's just a temporary thing, and those parents who have been in it know how challenging it is. I've heard from many of them wanting to send their kids back to school, and what school districts are tasked with is really to try to figure out how to teach, but at the same time handling these inequities that exist. And that, like I said, it's the digital divide. But you also, as Cynthia mentioned, you have food, you have homelessness issues, you have health issues. We're forced to face all of these issues. We were dealing with them face to face with people back pre-pandemic, and now we're still being tasked with dealing with those issues virtually.
It seems like, and we know everything is interconnected. I mean, the income can affect the schools for the kids, the health, even businesses. And bringing it back to Chris, Latinos, we're known for starting businesses at a higher rate than other demographics. But how is this crisis affecting the local Latino entrepreneur?
Well, Ivan, I think it's affecting kind of two pieces of that, right? So the first piece are those folks that had their own business, or maybe they work for somebody else. And I'll share this statistic with you, which is shocking. If you look at the last quarter unemployment in Georgia, you had an overall unemployment of 9.9%, which is higher than any time that we've had since literally the last recession. White unemployment was 7.5%. Black unemployment was 11.8%. Look at the gap right there. And here's the most difficult thing. A lot of those essential economy jobs we talked about in my last session, they're not coming back, right? The hospitality, some of the retail. So if you look at the projections toward the end of the year, economists are saying that we could 10% unemployment nationwide. You'll still have a pretty big gap there between Black and brown community and the white community. And I think it goes back to income inequality. And so how do you address that? Well, one of the ways is to start your own business, to chart your own future. But at the same time, if a lot of those industry sectors where those small businesses have been thriving aren't coming back, it makes it more difficult. I mean, before the pandemic hit, if you looked at Georgia business creation, if you looked at startups in Georgia, the overwhelming majority there were in the Latino community. And really, Latinas were the ones that were creating more of those new businesses and more of those new jobs out there. Of course, they were some of the first to get shut down. They also have some of the highest failure rates in the normal economy, right? Because not have access to the financial capital that they need to expand, right? If you look at the breakdown of where small businesses get their funding from, just think about venture capital for a minute. Venture capital, about 7% goes to female startups. 1.5% go to Latino startups, and less than 1% go to Black startups. And so just from the very beginning, there's a disconnect there. And then you go to the next step, so if you don't get money from there, where do you get it from? Well, I'll go to the bank, or I'll use my credit cards. And unfortunately, Latino business owners have a much higher rate of using their credit card to start their business or get money from family and friends, right? The credit cards have very high, repayment rates. So it's harder for them. So it's gonna impact those small business sectors a little bit longer than it's gonna impact the large companies that we see, or the mid-cap size companies in Georgia.
It's a trickle effect. Chris, I like that you touched on the essential economy jobs, and I think that our community is so part of that. Has this crisis revealed, or we've seen the impact, but what has it possibly shown state leaders that the importance of the Latino worker, who's many times behind the scenes?
Well, I tell you, again, I love statistics, so forgive me, but I think these are very powerful. If you look at just the nursing community in Georgia, so right now in Georgia, we have 128% more healthcare openings than we have people filling them. So we're in desperate need. That's a great growth field for your kids or grandkids, right? And so almost 11% of all the nurses in Georgia are foreign-born nurses. I talked to a hospital administrator yesterday who imported 50 nurses from Asia because he couldn't find enough. And he said that his school systems had not been sending kids through those programs. He couldn't get them trained enough. If you look at the taxes paid in Georgia last year, 10 billion from our immigrant population. And so I do think you've seen, as with many other sectors out there, COVID has exposed the demands of education, the demands on our families, the demands on healthcare, the disproportionality out there, the inequalities that exist. It's also exposed what it means in the economic world for your community, for the African American community, really for the Asian community. It's really been an eye-opener for a lot of people.
Okay, absolutely. It's changed the direction of which we live and the way we do life, if you will. We actually hit on a lot of points, and the need is great, as we know, and it's affecting us on every different level. Let's put our heads together and figure out, what can we do? What can we do as an individual, as a community, to try and at least do our part to help get our state back on track? And I know a lot of it is, predicated on COVID and where we're at, the vaccine, when the economy will open. But I'd love to get some tidbits from each of you. And I say we bring it back to Cynthia, if that's okay, and just get your take on it, knowing that you're working with so many direct Latinos. What would be the advice that you give them on things that they can do?
I had thought about 3 levels of this. One of them is for programs like us that provide first aid, support, stabilization services. It's just, we need to be, adaptable. We need to be resilient. We need to be ready to work with this community, establish a strong partnership with everyone that is out there serving, because like right now, that's what we are doing. Just try to create a strategic and strong collaboration so we can provide different services in this complex situation that they are experiencing. But then from the family side, we have seen that people that have more resilient, more strength, inner strength, but also more resourceful, and they are just working in the community with each other. We have seen that those are families that are more stable at some point. So we see that, the work that they can do within the communities, like helping each other, like develop strategies, grassroots strategies, like people, voicing out what they experience, organizing themselves. I think that's when, things are getting better, because they identify exactly what they need individually within their family, but also within their communities, and they can share what they need. And that's something that we need to work with, we need to work with them in collaborations with communities, immigrant communities especially, because they're the ones that are underserved, and be able to work, together to involve them in the process. It has to be in a way that we can identify especially what they need. I think that for us, that has been more effective.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, there was a lot of good nuggets in there, and it's important to share that. I almost feel that the resources are somewhat there, but our community may not know how to tap into them. So I think that's a conversation in itself to get the word out. Let's take it to Dr. Arona. And Doctor, how will COVID, I want to piggyback off of what's been said as far as these nuggets that we need, but also how is COVID going to affect the Latino population in the long term? We saw what Jason mentioned about even college applications are lower, but when it comes to health, what could we have learned from COVID, and how's it going to affect us in the long term?
Well, that's a great question. And first and foremost, we're still in the midst of COVID in this pandemic. And it's really hard to say really what the long-term impact is going to be for all of us, and what we're going to face down the road. But this virus is very highly contagious. We know that, and it's very highly contagious among families that live close together. And our transmission rates, we've seen decline right now. However, we're approaching fall. We're in fall, actually, and the cooler temperatures. So we're not really sure what is really going to do. So I can't miss the opportunity, first of all, to push the flu vaccine. Everyone needs to get a flu vaccine, because if you're affected by the flu this year and you're compromised because of that, and then you get COVID on top of that, you're really going to suffer more consequences with COVID than you would otherwise. And so if you're on the fence about getting the vaccine, this is your year to get off that fence and get the flu vaccine, because it really will save a lot. But in light of some recommendations, probably the most important thing is that, we've really pushed out hard our prevention messages: social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands, big one, staying home when you're sick and staying away from other people who are sick. Those things really work. And that's the only tool we have against this virus right now. And so our health department, public health, our medical community, our business community, all of us need to really join together for these very powerful messages to get to Latino population in our entire communities. And really, because this affects families, and this is what works to protect families from this virus. And, we push out how important families mean everything to us. And so this is how we protect those valuable family units.
Okay, great. Thank you for reiterating those basics as well that sometimes we forget, but that's what's going to keep us healthier and safer. So thank you for that. Jason, bringing it back to you, when it comes to the school system, we talked about the long-term effects on some levels, but besides the impact of COVID academically, what are you seeing are the social or even emotional deficiencies that this can affect, that may affect our Latin community?
Well, it's been a tough pandemic for all of us, right? Regardless of community, Latinos obviously have felt it just like everyone else. So in terms of higher depression, higher anxiety, more issues at home because you're with your family unit all the time without a place to go. So there's all kinds of increased stress and trauma from this pandemic. Many of our little kids, my son knows that we're not going places because of coronavirus. So he's always asking, is coronavirus still here? Are we not doing that because of the coronavirus? So these are things that will be ingrained in our community for a long time. But there's also the realities that many of the inequities have gotten worse because of the pandemic. So for all of us watching, for all of us engaged in this work, it's like Dr. Arona said, really protecting that family core is important. And we have to invest in our social services and invest in family, whether it's our own or whether it's someone else's, because the long-term effects of this pandemic are we will have to work towards or work out for a long time. And in the education world, that's going to mean becoming more innovative and trying to think about new ways to address gaps and inequities that we see in our school systems. But it also means shoring up family services and making sure that families are getting the basic needs from the physical, emotional, health needs. We need to make sure that those are being addressed so that school systems can address the education needs of our families. So it gives me hope that many of us have seen the inequities firsthand. Before we were talking about them or thinking about them in concepts, but many people did not see them firsthand. But I think because of this pandemic, there's been wide coverage about the inequities. We saw long lines of people waiting for food. We've seen long lines of people waiting for assistance whether it's rent or otherwise. So because of us witnessing those issues and that trauma, I feel like equity is much more of a topic that's top of mind today than it was before. And we need to leverage that and actually do something about it.
Okay. Leverage those conversations. It sounds like we need to get leaders involved as well to encourage this change and to establish the services that are needed and to get the word out about it. Thank you for that. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it to the state level with Chris and talk about what can Latinos do to make sure that a crisis like this in the future does not hit us so hard. I mean, how can we, I know you talked about being a self-employed, an entrepreneur, and maybe that's the solution, but how can we help Latinos build wealth and protect themselves?
So a few key things here, Ivan. First of all, we've got to have real immigration reform in this country. And we're committed to doing that and working with the Georgia Hispanic Chamber, with you and Gabe, Renee Diaz, Kevin Greiner, and a whole host of folks to make sure that that system works for everyone and is fair and balanced, number one. Number two, you've got to have human capital, right? Human capital is having the education that Jason's talked about. More importantly, if you're an essential worker today, you need to be reskilling and upskilling, because the likelihood of your job coming back as it was is almost nearly forget about it. It's going to look very different. Number three, I think you've got to have financial capital, which means closer relationships between the banking community and the Latino community in Georgia. You've got to have better societal capital, which means businesses need to be part of the LAA. They need to be part of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber, to be involved in their communities. They need to have that network that's so very important. And the last two things that I'll say, and these are more patriotic, but for the love of everything holy, go vote. Right? And then second, fill out the census. If you ignore the census, you're ignoring resources that should be coming to your community in the long run. And if you don't vote, you're ignoring your right to be involved in this system, so that we are better prepared when, it's not if, it's when, you know, the next scenario takes place, whether it's a cyber attack, a natural disaster, or another pandemic. We have to live in a community that's going to be more resilient over the long term, which means making ourselves and our families and our institutions more resilient as well.
Chris, well said. All those are important reminders as well. So yeah, let's make that change together, and that's how we're going to make our state prosper and on the path for the right direction. This has been great. I do want to kind of close it out with just, we got a lot of great ideas, and I've taken some good notes over here, but if each one of you could just say, hey, one thing that we can do, just a practical thing. Some of y'all said several, some of y'all said a couple. Just give me that one practical item, and then we're going to try and close it out with that. What can we do to help make our Latinos stronger in the midst of COVID, and to make sure that that there is a path of recovery happening in our state? We'll start off with Chris.
I would just say, almost the overarching theme of everything I just said, engage with the community. You're not out there on your own, engage.
You're the man, engage. Great. Let's take it to Dr. Arona.
Yes, absolutely. I'd just like for everybody to be reminded that, you know, our health department is really designed as a part of healthcare to fill in the gaps. So remember the health department as a resource for anything. Even if we don't provide it, we'll find it for you. So again, just look to us.
Okay, real quick, just to piggyback on that, how do we access those resources? It's your world, you're able to, you understand it, you know what's going on, but our community may not know that we can call the Gwinnett, Rockdale, Newton Health Department and ask for some help. So Dr. Arona,
absolutely.
Go ahead, yeah.
Our website is gnrhealth.com, gnrhealth.com. So you can start there. You can reach out, email me, again, Dr. Arona. I've got my contact information everywhere. Just call one of our centers. Our number is there. Just that's the best place to access our website.
That's exactly what we need, the practicality of how we can actually support our families and the resources that are out there. I got to give kudos once again to the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for putting these educational series available to everyone. And I do think it's extremely healthy when the media comes together so that we can actually tell our community through our voices, television, radio, and let them know, hey, here's a resource for rental assistance that you may not know about, or for support with schools, or Jason talking about getting everybody broadband and how you can actually access that. So those nuggets are important. We all have to do our part and get the information out. Let's take it to Jason, if there is one nugget that you want to close out with.
I'll do two really quickly. One is to advocate for Latino families. As I mentioned, in Atlanta Public Schools, we provided laptops and hotspots for those folks who needed it. Not every school district did it for a variety of reasons, but we need people advocating in each school system for those in need to make sure that their voices are heard. And the second thing is to thank a teacher. Please thank your public school teacher for what they're doing, because they are working incredibly hard, whether they are working face-to-face or virtual. They are trying to do their best. And they need as much love and as much grace as possible. So thank a teacher.
Those are great. Two good points, practical, and that's a good reminder. Teachers are awesome. Cynthia, let's talk about the LAA, maybe one nugget. You gave us a great list, but please, for resources, what can we do?
So in Latin American Association, we have different programs that had been provided virtually, from English classes, computer classes, mini job fairs for people who are looking for a job. We have translation services. We have family well-being, which is a program that I oversee, provide information referrals. If they're looking for a community clinic, we can provide this information. If they need information about Medicaid, how to be eligible, we provide this information, and also we help them to apply, enroll, and advocate for them so they have positive results in terms of food stamp, Medicaid, public benefit. We provide financial assistance for families in need. And this is something that has been, a huge demand for us in these times. And we have been, receiving funding from the different sources that, thanks to them, we have been able to continue to provide these services. We have case workers ready to provide crisis intervention. We can connect them with counseling, with mental health services in Spanish, with some of the collaborators that we had. We are gonna hire now a new advocate for victims of domestic violence, because that's something that we have seen, which has been invisible from, with the pandemic, but is something that is there. We have received a lot of calls from women in situations of domestic violence. We have so much information for the Latino community. So just call us. Okay. Our number is 404-638-1839. That's our hotline.
You are full of great ideas. I think it comes down to also reaching out to the Latin American Association for those types of services. The Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce also has some resources on their line. The goal of this conversation, and as we conclude, was to bring this team together so we can bring out some ideas, some solutions that can lift our community and our state. So I believe we have accomplished that. I'm going to read out a few things that we've actually listed today so that we can keep these top of mind and continue to help our state. Everything from providing healthcare insurance if you're a business owner, healthcare resources through the health department, like the GNR health department that we talked about. We can provide quality education virtually, that's key. Schools to provide options for future virtual learning, so that's coming. Utilize partnerships such as in the community where there's resources available. Tap into the broadband internet that's actually available for certain families. Be adaptable and resilient in this time. Establish partnerships, collaborations to provide services. We want to also help each other through grassroots strategies. We want to come together. We want to organize, voice our needs, get the flu vaccine. Don't be on the fence about it. Social distance, wash your hands, stay at home, protect your family, invest in social services, thank a teacher. The list goes on and on. I am grateful. You can have access to this conversation anytime you want as well. And thank you again to our panelists. You guys were awesome as far as every type of industry within our state. Chris Clark, Georgia Chamber of Commerce. Jason Estes from the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education, Dr. Audrey Arona, perdóname, with the Gwinnett, Newton, and Rockdale County Health Department, and of course, Cynthia with the Latin American Association. We are grateful. Don't go anywhere. Please stay tuned. There's more great conversation to come as part of this series, but I want to thank you for joining us as panelists. I want to thank those viewers, and hopefully this was fulfilling to you, and we know where to access resources to make our community strong and make our state prosper. Thank you all y muchas gracias.
Hello, I'm Kevin Greiner. I'm President and CEO of Gas South, and I am pleased to be here today at the 2020 Latino Prosperity Summit. I also chair the Georgia Chamber's Global Talent Initiative, which is a business coalition that is working to enhance dialogue on immigration issues and to find bipartisan common ground in Georgia for immigration reform and policy change. And I also currently chair Select COP, which is the economic development organization for the county that Gas South calls home. So in these various capacities, I'm excited to chair this workforce development panel. It's entitled, How 2020 is Changing Georgia's Workforce. We have a very diverse group of panelists joining us today. They are Joe Dan Banker. He is Deputy Commissioner of the Technical Education and Workforce Development for the Technical College System of Georgia. We also have Alex Kemmerdell. He is a Senior Policy Analyst focusing on economic mobility at the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. We have Monica Cucalon. She is the Managing Director of Economic Empowerment at the Latin American Association. We also have Adam Ferrand with us today. He is the Vice President of Education, Talent, and Leadership Development at the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce. And then lastly, we have Rob LeBeau. He is the Director of Workforce Atlanta Regional, which is an affiliate of the ARC. So let's get started. So I want to start with you, Alex. What are some of the sectors where you are seeing sustained job losses? And what types of workers are being most affected by the pandemic today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. Thank you so much for sharing those insights, Kevin. I'm excited to dive in. So as a policy analyst, it's my responsibility to use data about the economy to kind of inform some of the recommendations that we champion at GBPI. And before I discuss kind of where we are currently, I did want to sort of establish a baseline of where we were just before entering into this pandemic recession that we're experiencing now. At the end of 2019, Georgia was enjoying a seemingly healthy labor market compared to where we are or where we were during the Great Recession. For example, the overall unemployment rate was 3.4%, and it was the lowest it had ever been. But for those who had only completed a high school education, the unemployment rate was double. And if you dig deeper into this, the unemployment rate by race and ethnicity was actually revealing an uneven position in the labor market, where the unemployment rate, for example, for Latinos was double what it was for white Georgians. So one of the troubling trends leading into this year was an increase in the percentage of adults that only had a high school diploma or GED, while the percentage of adults with some post-secondary credentials or training was actually decreasing across the state of Georgia. Before COVID-19, Georgia ranked 41st in the percentage of adults with just a high school diploma or GED. 46% of Georgia children were living in families in poverty where no adult had some post-secondary education or training. And before this crisis, most jobs in Georgia's labor market, roughly 55%, were considered middle skill jobs, which required more than a high school education, but less than a 4-year degree. Only 43% of Georgia's workers were trained to actually fulfill those middle school jobs before the pandemic hit. That was putting a great amount of pressure on our state's workforce leaders to capture folks who do not have the required credentials to access some of the high demand industries that are hiring in the state. Structurally, our workforce development system has to do a lot more with less as well. So most public workforce training opportunities are funded through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and those funds have declined over the years, while the need has stayed relatively consistent for funding. Today, now that COVID-19 has hit, our public workforce system is facing significant pressure to do more with less in terms of resources. All of Georgia's workers are facing a crisis, and the demand for retraining and helping laid off workers rejoin the workforce is growing every day. Every week, nearly 800,000 Georgians are filing continued unemployment claims, and Latinos seem to be facing the deepest hardship when it comes to rejoining the workforce. For instance, when observing unemployment insurance claims, the data for Georgia shows that Latinos are turning to UI at higher rates than other populations, and they're taking the longest to roll off of unemployment insurance benefits. And these job losses that we're seeing today in Georgia are concentrated in the low-wage job market. We're talking about hospitality and tourism, retail, and food services. So these aren't necessarily recession-proof industries, and we have a lot of our workers, particularly workers of color, who are overrepresented in industries that are more vulnerable to layoffs during this time. So as we're looking ahead, and I'll pass it to my colleagues to share more about what we can do to shore up our workforce system and really what's happening already, we have to consider that we need to prioritize policy solutions that connect workers to jobs that provide economic mobility, not just place them in more vulnerable jobs that don't necessarily promote economic opportunity and stability.
Yeah, great point, Alex. And certainly with this K-shaped recovery, we have found that certainly lower skilled workers have been disproportionately hit by this pandemic. Absolutely, no question about that. So Rob, moving to kind of an ARC perspective, let's talk about what you guys are seeing in the job market. How quickly are jobs coming back? And I'm curious, as unemployment benefits were curtailed in August, how quickly have you seen folks returning to the workforce, or at least trying to do so?
Right. Thank you, Kevin. We're seeing mixed results, quite frankly. You mentioned at the very beginning that we're having a K-shaped recovery, and that is true. We are seeing a lot more job postings are coming back. As Alex mentioned, the unemployment insurance claims, they have been dropping significantly over the past few weeks, and the overall unemployment rate has been dropping significantly. Those are all very positive. But if you put it in perspective of where we were last year, we're still way above 2019 for unemployment and uninsurance. The trend is right, but it's going to be a long recovery. We're certainly going in the right direction, but it's going to take some time to get back to where we were, and it's going to take some concerted efforts by many different organizations to really get back to where we were. Of course, some of the most impacted industries that we saw were related to hospitality and food service, and those are still struggling, and they are going to continue to struggle until we see a true drop in COVID cases, and maybe even until we have a way to address them, to have a vaccine and others. But there are other industries that are hiring, and are hiring quite a lot. For example, transportation, distribution, logistics is hiring very much. And I see Adam shaking his head. I'm sure he will talk about some exciting things that are happening in Gwinnett. But there are certainly industries that are hiring, and we're able to work with them and help them get people who are interested in those areas and get the training they need to get the skills and get employed in those areas. One thing I want to point to is a website that the 5 workforce boards in Metro Atlanta have put together. It's called atlworks.org. And that is a single entry page for all job seekers who are looking to get engaged with the local workforce boards. They can go to that site and get some basic information about what we provide and how to get started. So as workforce boards, we're able to provide training for those that are unemployed or underemployed, and may have been laid off because of COVID or for other reasons, and we can help them get the skills they need for in-demand jobs, and not just to get a job right away, but the intent is to get into a sustainable career that they could move along and gain experience and gain pay and gain responsibility and move up in that career, so that there's a career ladder that will put them on the path to income sustainability.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. At Gas South, we're one of those that have continued hiring during the pandemic. And, you know, as I mentioned at the outset, our business has done pretty well. We had a pretty big work program this year, had expected to do some hiring, and in fact have done so. And I would say in some respects, you know, we're more productive actually working from home. But in preparation for our busy season, we have been seeking bilingual customer care representatives. So folks who can speak both Spanish and English, do it over the phone and in chat and in email correspondence with our customers. And so we've been looking to hire 12 people, and we pay pretty well. It's $18 an hour to start pay with a nice benefits package, and yet finding that bilingual skill set and the other characteristics that we look for, things like, you know, some math skills and critical thinking skills, good communication, empathy, kind of a mix of, you know, hard and soft skills. They've been tough to find, even in this economy. So we partnered with the Latin American Association and Monica and her team to try to find the talent that we needed. And Monica, can you talk about what you're seeing in the job market as it relates to Latinos? What skills do you see in abundance? And what do you see in short supply? And then specifically, what are you guys doing at the LAA to try to close that gap between the skills that workers have and what the market really needs during these times?
Thank you, Kevin. For what we have seen at the LAA is that the pandemic has been for the Latino community a disruptive of the economic progress. We have been working together with employers and job seekers trying to understand what are the needs there. For example, with the hospitality industry, we have seen that it's coming back very slow. They don't see a full recovery until 2022 or 23, but they ask us for 100 of housekeeping in the summertime. So we help them a lot looking for these people. Latinas have been hit very bad, so they had to go and move to another industries, or they went home just to take care of the kids because of the child care was shut down. But they also started their own businesses. So that is what we have seen on the Latino hospitality side. Other industries like manufacturing and food processor are returning too, but they are accepting people from other industries. They are right now training these people from other industries with all the safety regulation. But what they need right now is machine operators, material handlers, warehouse workers, among others, are in the need. We have been working with an organization in north of Dalton. They are asking for 1,000 of employees to work on the warehousing and the manufacturing. So it's coming back, very slow, but it's coming back. I think it's a good number, however. But they need basic level of English. We are starting these people looking for ESL classes for them, digital literacy, basic computer skills, email operation, smartphone communication. That is the skill they are looking for. Types of training in demand for manufacturing: mechatronic, programming, industrial systems, so they can skill the employees so they can move up the employees to the next level. What we have seen also is the technical skills are highly valued and necessary to move forward. That's what they say. In construction, changes in the hiring process are due to seasonal nature of the job. While we have seen no position have been created or eliminated because of COVID-19, that is happening with the construction. So that is good. What they need right now: electrical installation and maintenance, carpenters, experienced asphalt workers, and construction equipment operators. Customer service, what we have seen in customer service is having a transformation in industries such as retail, banking, restaurant services. Digital engagement to complement in-person customer experience is necessary now. And bilingual customer services is in demand right now, like you said, Kevin. In the health sector, what we found: frontline employees were transferred to the virtual environment. Telehealth will be significantly improved. Digital literacy is required. So that is what we have seen in different industries. All the plans are moving forward, very slow, but it's coming. What we have done so far is talking with the employers and job seekers through the virtual job fairs, We are having our second job fair on October the 29th. We also have job banks, and we working daily with all the job seekers and see how we can connect them and try to understand their needs.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Monica. You know, one of the things that we've relied on for our bilingual customer care representatives are folks that are working under the DACA program, the Dreamers, because of course they tend to be the folks that have the most developed English skills that come, of course, with also being fluent in Spanish. So with some of those young folks, Jodan, I'd like to actually go to you next. You know, you're a deputy commissioner of the technical college system. We have a lot of employees here at Gas South who will work on their degree while they begin work for us, for example, in that customer care environment. What kinds of technical careers do you find are really hot areas right now, given where the jobs are?
Well, thank you, Kevin. I can only add to what Monica and Rob and Alex have already said. The most interesting thing that I think that's come out during the pandemic is the need for childcare. With schools not open physically but open online, a lot of parents are stuck now. They could go to work, but they don't have anywhere to put their children so that they could go to school and be at home. So childcare has become a pretty hot commodity. There was never enough before, but it wasn't as noticed as much as it is now. And then in Georgia, manufacturing has always been good and still remains that way. And as Rob said, he talked about logistics and supply chain management. And in particular, within that is truck driving. Truck driving was a really hot commodity prior to the pandemic. It's even greater now. You think about all the things that you now have that just get delivered to you at home. There's somebody that's got to do that, and that all comes under the rubric of logistics and supply chain management. So those areas have become a lot in demand. The retail sales with the big box stores, they were in a little bit of a slump prior to the pandemic. The pandemic has really hit them hard. I don't have any predictions for you. I wish I could predict the future, but I don't know where that might end up. But things like hotel, restaurant, and those types of services, while they're hurting right now, we still have a lot of people interested in them. And eventually, as we come out of this, when we do get a vaccine and when we are returning to some sort of normalcy, you would expect that those would heat back up again. And a lot of the people that have been laid off from that are retraining themselves now into other fields that are a little more recession-proof from these sorts of things. So there will be a demand for that, and we kind of see people looking at that. But like I say, manufacturing, childcare, commercial truck driving, and then the whole logistics community is. But I did want to just jump in on something Monica said about English as a second language. Every one of our technical colleges underneath their adult education program has English as a second language. And in some of our economic development programs, which are non-credit, and they're not your typical college programs, they're designed specifically for something. They have a lot of, if you're interacting with the public and the public largely is speaking Spanish, they have language skills for those. So that might help you out a little bit, Kevin. If you guys are having trouble filling those bilingual, you might consider somebody who I wouldn't consider bilingual, but at least has some of the jargon where they can communicate in an environment like what you have in your service area there.
Yeah.
So, we are, as we always were, ready to support whatever the industry is needing, and those seem to be the trends that we're seeing today.
Yeah. Well, great point, and then a very astute one on the childcare situation. Even at a company like ours, where the nature of our business and what we sell, and also our technology allows folks to work from home. And you'd say, well, those folks then can like do double duty and take care of their kids. But let me tell you, it's not that easy. I'm glad I'm past that point in my own life where my kids are, older now, and, they're pretty self-sufficient. But if you got a young kid and you're trying to get your work done and they're at home with you, that's challenging. Not to mention, of course, if you actually can't work from home and you have to go someplace to work, it's almost impossible without having, somebody who can watch your child. So definitely an underappreciated aspect of the pandemic that we need to continue to work on and try to solve for the longer this goes on. Adam, I'd like to next go to you and to see what you're seeing in Gwinnett County. Gwinnett's arguably our most diverse county in Metro Atlanta, very sizable Latino population, as well as other people of color. What talents and skills do the businesses in Gwinnett, what are they looking for? How has the pandemic, sort of changed the priorities for hiring, and therefore, how are you seeing transformations occur inside of your communities?
Well, thank you, Kevin, and know that we're thankful to the Georgia Hispanic Chamber in LAA for their partnership and the continued contribution that we're all making towards this prosperity that we're all seeking for our community in particular. And in Gwinnett County, indeed, we are a very large and very diverse community, but after Alex's leadoff home run in a bases loaded situation here, like I'm going to continue to sort of plus one everything that I heard from Monica and Jodan and Rob as well, that we represent, much like the rest of Metro Atlanta, target sectors and industries that are doing well. If you look at transportation, distribution, logistics, e-commerce has driven that growth. And as those who have been able to work through this time can attest to, that last mile connectivity is what's driving the growth in that particular sector. But if you do look upstream, as Monica had acknowledged as well, in our community, most people are surprised that manufacturing and operations and assembly work in Gwinnett County is a very strong sector. So as global supply chains continue to be disrupted and these employers seek to get closer to the markets they serve, whether it's Gwinnett or Metro Atlanta region, they are moving operations into these communities as well. So those mechatronic skills, those machine operators, those that require upskilling of particular opportunities continue to be where we will continue to grow, particularly as we look forward to 21 and 22 in the future as well. And so while among those target sectors, those are the ones that we lean upon, we know that our hospitality and accommodations and retail are hard hit as well. These are also the fabric of our community, in a community of almost 1 million people, that we come to rely upon as well. So it strikes me that between the hard skills and the soft skills, we can take a quick accounting. And while I have lots of anecdotal evidence, I'm leaning upon Jobs EQ, a database that we subscribe to that many of our partners have access to. And today I pulled a report just to see where we stood today on Monday, October 5th, and with almost 100,000 active job openings out there. What I've noticed on the hard skill side is that Microsoft Office skills rule the roost. So whether it's for professional reasons or perhaps just your personal productivity and you have a particular skill set in any of those Microsoft Office products, you probably have an opportunity in another sector, in another business that perhaps you did not realize. There's also indications that transportation, distribution, logistics continues to grow as well when we look at the ability to lift 40 to 50 pounds, be able to move product. But we're starting to see indications of a small and slow recovery in retail, whether that is in hospitality or in retail stores as well. So the hard skills are pretty dispersed there, but the soft skill side, I think, is where the story truly lies. And in saying that, acknowledging that we are moving from, as a society, individuals and organizations and businesses alike, moving from improvisation to adaptation. And I think we're in that adaptation phase right now. And it's important for us as individuals to think about ourselves and our skill sets in that same way. So we're advocating for individuals and organizations to take a really strong look and take stock of transferable skills that you may have in one particular sector, the experiences that you may have, and how you might be able to reframe them or perhaps with a little bit of investment of reskilling or upskilling, might be able to make yourself more competitive for an opportunity that is sustainable and perhaps has a longer tail for your professional growth and allows you for better economic mobility as well. And some of those skills really have to do with adaptability, easy for me to say, is the rate and pace of change that we're all experiencing, both individually and organizationally, is one that can be disorienting, does not allow you to have a sure footing from a day-to-day or week-to-week. But if we can persist and if we can identify those skills and speak to those skills, perhaps there is an opportunity for individuals and employers to look at the available talent in the community in which they serve and perhaps find some new individuals that they did not notice before as well. So I'll also second Monica's acknowledgement that perhaps this is a great time to start a business as well. If you have the experience and you need some additional skills or perhaps some technical support, our community can provide that technical support for you to launch your own business. And nothing like being your own boss and relying upon your own skills and your own motivations and drives and desires to make something happen for yourself or your family or your community as well. You know, it stands to reason that I think we're all singing from the same songbook here, where the sectors that are doing well, the skills that are needed, and opportunities as well. So as a note of encouragement, take note of those transferable skills and find them and continue to invest in them over time.
Yep. No question. Key success factor for any company is, you know, upskilling your existing folks to the extent that they can develop those new skills that you need, and then going out to the market to make sure that you can get them. And it's a tough balance, you know, of making sure that, you know, hey, people I've got, how can they grow, while then also not being shy to go out and get that talent that you need out in the marketplace that might be in short supply in your organization. So thanks for those comments. And I agree 100% too. Great time to start a business. Anytime that you've got crisis comes opportunity. And certainly we're starting to see that. And there are plenty of signs of new business formation really starting to tick up. So we're going to conclude today. I would just want to go around the horn, and we'll go in the same order that each of you guys spoke. And anything that you'd like for folks to take away from today. You know, we are here at the Latino Prosperity Conference. So let's end on an upbeat message, something that you know, you're seeing in the data or the opportunities that you're seeing out in the marketplace that should make folks feel encouraged that we can come through this pandemic stronger than ever as a nation. Alex, why don't we start with you?
Of course. I love this question because I really feel like it's proper for the moment we're in. You know, we're experiencing an environment that, you know, certainly not in my lifetime has ever been experienced. And that's a pandemic, a crisis that has, you know, really, I think, mixed up or remixed rather how we are approaching our economy and how we're thinking about our economy and what does a safety net look like for folks who may have been pushed out of work and opportunity. We've seen some really incredible things happen this year. I mean, you know, millions of people woke up, you know, and overnight to a stimulus check in their account overnight and other forms of economic support. Granted, you know, it fell short because it missed a lot of folks because you couldn't file as an ITIN filer, for example, to get those payments. So there's some shortcomings, but that is an example of how what this crisis, and I love the way you put it, breeds opportunity. And it's really an opportunity, at least for us, and now we're thinking about it from a systems approach, to reimagine how these systems work so that they can fulfill the needs of all of the folks that we're, you know, on this call and discussing today in terms of helping folks achieve prosperity. So I leave, you know, folks who are listening in or watching this to think about, if you had a blank slate to make Georgia's economy work best for you, what would you put out there? What would you propose? And then fight like hell to make it happen, because this is the time or the window of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this period also has created so many conversations on equity and systemic racism and social justice. That's also really created a whole new lens for thinking about, you know, economic growth, and really even going all the way down to workforce development, I think, and ensuring that, you know, everybody can bring their best to the table with whatever they end up doing in their career. So Rob, let's go to you next. Something you'd like to leave the audience with.
Absolutely. And I'd like to focus on the economy, in that we are fortunate that we have a diverse economy. The pandemic highlighted issues, as we talked about, in hospitality, food service, retail, in those areas. But we've talked about the other industries that are strong: manufacturing, transportation, distribution, logistics. Two that we didn't mention that are very strong in our area is information technology. So coding, computers, that's very strong. And when you look to the future, that's going to continue to grow. That also has, it's not very vulnerable to automation. So that's a great industry. And the other is healthcare. Healthcare is huge in Metro Atlanta. And what's interesting about healthcare is when COVID hit, we actually saw a reduction. We saw some layoffs because people weren't going out and doing those more elective healthcare activities, like going to the dentist or going to your doctor and having a checkup. That's coming back, and that's coming back quickly. And healthcare is also just a long-term, really viable industry to be in, and you can get a great career path by going into the healthcare sector. So we are very strong in healthcare, and we will continue to be strong in healthcare. One other positive I want to mention on is something Adam mentioned about skills. The other trend we are seeing, and I believe Kevin, you mentioned this as well, is in the past there was a strong reliance on degrees. What type of degree do you have? We're seeing more and more companies and other employers looking at what are your skills, what are your credentials, what are those in-demand skills, and less on the degree. That opens up a lot of opportunity to our job seekers who may not be able to go to a four-year college, but can go to a technical college, can go to a private training program, go to one of the workforce boards and get a credential. And there's just a wide variety of credentials out there, and we're able to work with many organizations to find out what are those in-demand skills and those credentials that are being requested, and then design programs around those. So I think that is a very positive trend, is looking at that credential. And then finally, the last point I wanted to make is also on equity that Alex and you also mentioned. We're able to step back and make sure that the programs and services are more equitably available and distributed around the entire region, both geographic and based on race and many other factors, to make sure that we have equitable distribution and equitable access to the workforce development system.
Yeah, great points, Rob. Thank you for adding those. Monica, something that you would leave us with?
Sure. I would like to send this message also to our community, our Latinos. Tell them that take this as an opportunity. I mean, we have been in a hardship before. This is not the only time we have been in a hardship. So take this as an opportunity, use your credential, learn the language, go there, because bilingual people is required. So you just have to go and learn the language. Basic skills, but you can use your credential for your country and go and take trainings that help you to find a better job. So this is the opportunity. Look, that has an opportunity. And also this is a call for the community, public, private, and social work sectors. So we can work together to help really the Latinos to restore all this disruption.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you, Monica. And that's great advice for folks that are looking to make that career change or upskill into a new position. Joe Dan, something that you would leave us with from today's discussion?
Well, everybody else has certainly covered the book completely well, but I do want to just say I agree with Monica 100%. If you've ever thought about trying something that you haven't done now, now's the time. The services are there for you. If you need language skills, you can get language skills. If you want to open your own business, there are programs at the technical colleges and entrepreneurship and how to do that. And as Adam said, there are services that can help you do that. If you just think about the things that you like and then do that. And then the only other thing I'd like to say is that as I was growing up, I remember hearing all the stories from my parents and aunts and uncles about how they survived the Great Depression of the 1930s and followed on by the World War II and got through all of that. Our kids are several years downstream we'll be talking about how we did that through this pandemic. And that's exactly what will happen. We will get through this. And I think we'll probably be stronger at the other side because people will physically try to do new things, and then all the services are there to help them out to do it. Between the local workforce boards and the technical colleges, if you're not sure what you want to do, come to us. We can help you find that right choice that's good for you, that's good for your community, and is a good career path.
Yeah, great points. I think it's time for me to look at taking a Python coding class, get me a little more office cred around here too, and hopefully figure out other ways to add value here at Gas South. Adam, I have seriously thought about doing that, so I'm going to take that as a challenge. Joe Dan, how about you, Adam? Finish us out.
Yeah, I'll join the chorus of my colleagues on two fronts. Whether you're an individual or you employ individuals, access the workforce development system. The folks that you see here, we are friends and colleagues, and we are actively working on it, improving it, to Alex's point, at the local and the regional level. It's not perfect, but we're working hard to make it as best as it can be for you as an individual, for you as an employer as well. And then the second refrain will be persist. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. And we want you to succeed. We're here to help you succeed. So thankful for this opportunity to get that message across.
Wow, now that finishes us off as well as anything could. Thank you, Adam. So I want to thank all of our panelists on behalf of the sponsors of this great event, the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here today. I hope those of you that are viewing it, our broadcast today, learned a little something and had some good takeaways. Let's keep working hard to really enhance the prosperity of our entire region and for all the people that live in Metro Atlanta. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you again soon.
Welcome everyone to the panel on how Latino entrepreneurs are surviving 2020. I have the honor of moderating this panel. We've lined up some great speakers for you today. I've been asked to introduce myself. Sometimes I find it a little awkward, but here we go, right? My name is Albert Assad. I'm a second generation Mexican-American born in Los Angeles. I run my own management consulting company, which I started back in 2015, based out of here, Atlanta, Georgia. With 23 years of experience, I've worked with over 220 business owners, primarily across the US, Latin America, and in different types of industries, 32 different industries, financial institutions, technology companies, construction companies, etc. Now, I have several master's degrees and certifications for universities in Europe, Latin America, and the US. I've lived in 6 countries, love to travel, enjoy food, like probably most of you. And I've participated on the board of several nonprofit organizations. I really like giving back and helping people a lot. I think, like most of you, 2020 has been a unique year for me, to say the least, right? I'm sure you've seen those memes that talk about 2020. I like one where there's a guy that's driving down the road in an open field and he sees a cow flying across the horizon. His eyes open up, and he sees it, and he's like, what the? And then he stops and he focuses back on the road and he says to himself, never mind, I forgot it's 2020. It is a crazy time, right? It is a very, very interesting time for a lot of businesses. And I'm sure that many of you have the same perspective regarding this year, regarding 2020. Just when you thought everything was over, new things keep popping up, right? I looked at, the New York Times, and it indicates that about 20% of businesses will temporarily or permanently close. That's a significant amount of business, especially when you look at Georgia. We have over 1 million small businesses operating before COVID started. So you do the math, that's a lot. So, and also, looking at Bloomberg, it says that across, the country, more than 100,000 businesses across the country have permanently closed between March 1st and July 25th. So that's up to July. We haven't even seen the past months. About 800 of those small businesses have already filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy up to the end of July, according to the American Bankruptcy Institute. And about 58% of small business owners say they're worried about permanently closing, according to the US Chamber of Commerce survey. So yeah, this has been a really, really tough year for a lot of businesses. And you know what's really interesting within all of this, when you look at the Latino community, especially women, this is one of the fastest growing sectors of the population when it comes to creating new businesses. We have a lot of new small business owners that find themselves in this situation, which makes it really, really difficult, right? It's not easy running a business, and especially in this situation. And 90% of Latino businesses in Georgia generate under $200,000. So when you have a situation like COVID that affects businesses, that affects your revenue. And if your revenue is at that level, it's really going to have a big impact, not just on the business, but on your personal life as well. So how does this COVID affect us, right? It's definitely affecting us. So what are ways that it affects us? Well, it affects you in how you make decisions, one. Two, it affects you on how to leverage technology. And three, it affects on what customers' needs are and how you reach out to customers in many other ways, right? However, and I know I'm talking about a lot of negative things, right? But not all of it is doom and gloom. There are actually statistics that show also a lot of businesses are doing well. And some businesses are growing a lot during this time. So the question then we can ask ourselves is, okay, well, why have they grown? What are they doing that I can do to help me grow? And so that's what we're going to be doing in today's panel. We're going to be focusing on talking about some of the items that are going to help you to be able to continue to not just survive, which is important, but to also thrive, right? And we will be focusing on three main areas. We could talk about a lot of different things. We're going to be focusing on three main ones. The first one is management. Second one is marketing. And the third one is technology. So why management? Management because you need to be able to make the decisions to change, but more importantly, you need to have the will to change and put your money where your mouth is and to take smart risks in order to continue to grow your business. Marketing, because as we all know, we need to better understand what are the changing factors in our customers during this post-COVID crisis, not just during the actual crisis itself. And lastly, technology, because it's key for greater efficiencies. It's key for staying in touch with your market and watching out for hacking, which has increased significantly, right? Over 400% during this time. So to this end, we have three exceptional panelists today that will share with us their wisdom addressing these points that I've talked about. So how Latino entrepreneurs are surviving 2020. First, we have Daniel Acosta, CEO of Quickly Media. He's an experienced CEO with a demonstrated history of working in marketing and advertising throughout small and medium-sized businesses. Daniel, although he's very young, is very well experienced and very skilled in social media, advertising, lead generation, customer service, corporate branding, and conversion strategies. He's also a strong entrepreneurship professional, graduated from Kennesaw State University at Michael J. Collins College of Business. So Daniel, thank you so much for making the time and being here with us. Second, we have Clara Richardson, CEO of CIC Floors. Clara founded CIC Floors with her husband, Cesar, a great guy, I know him, 16 years ago. She's a lawyer in her native Dominican Republic. Then Clara immigrated to the United States to earn a postgraduate degree in music management at Georgia State University because, you know, being a lawyer was just so easy. She just got bored. In 2004, Clara married Cesar, which was the best decision he ever made, right, Clara? And started CIC Floors, a one-stop shop offering quality production flooring products and professional installation. Clara has served in many leadership roles in the Atlanta community, as well as board member of CID Gateway 85, Clara worked with the international community promoting diversity at Georgia State University, Woodruff Arts Center, and the Grammy Professional Development Panel. CIC Florida has many notable awards, among them 2019 Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce Minority Owned Small Business Award, winner also of the Georgia Hispanic Construction Association 2016 Residential Business of the Year. And in 2018, CIC Floors obtained the exclusivity of Versace Tile, Idless Wood, and Technographica Wallpaper. Those are just some. There's many more. It's a whole page. Can't read them all today, but a lot of great things. Thank you, Clara, for joining us as well.
Thank you, Albert.
And our third panelist is Tanya Allen, CEO of IT Gresa. Originally from Venezuela, she worked in PDVSA, the oil company in Venezuela, as an IT professional, a network administrator, and a project leader. During her tenure, her team updated the company's network infrastructure in buildings around all of the Venezuelan capital. She grew up in a poor family where her mom often had to decide if they were going to put food on the table or if they would buy school books or uniforms so they could attend school. Despite these challenges, Tanya's mom managed to build a house, buy and run a farm, and made sure all her kids got a college degree. And that's why you see Tanya has been so successful, because she gets it from her mom, right? Tanya obtained 3 degrees, one in nursing, graduating when she was just 17 years old. Man, I can't remember what I was doing when I was 17, but I hadn't graduated from anything. Second of all, she also has a degree in information technology. And if that was enough, because she just had more time, she also got a degree in digital engineering, right? Finally, just to polish her resume off, she has a certification in cybersecurity from none other than Georgia Tech. As we all know, very renowned school. She also owns a company that sells fashion and accessories, IT upgrades, and network wiring, and other consulting engagements. She came to the US in 1999 to escape a repressive and dangerous government in Venezuela, as she has commented, and is now, as she says, a proud citizen of the United States of America. So this is our panel. Thank you, Tanya, for joining us as well. So we've got 3 heavy hitters here, everybody. Let's take advantage and ask some really interesting questions. So let's get into the exciting part of all of this. So I'd like to, Clara, I'd like to ask you, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? And it's not me, okay? I'm talking about COVID-19. When the pandemic started, a lot of people were scared, including myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. Why? Because no one knew what to expect, right? Were you concerned about the uncertainty for your business? How hard has it been for you as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what was the reaction of the call of closing all the offices and companies, but for us was a phone ringing out of the hook, with all of our clients canceling projects, asking for reimbursement, and the next door business shutting down and closing completely. And that was a very scary first 2 weeks for CIC Floors, but we were blessed, and we had the opportunity to just think it through it. We have, of course, to close because the city closed. And during that time, we just were able to see all the things ramping up, and clients that closed, all the clients sign up for doing their projects. They were moving to the lake house and they wanted to renovate their homes. And as everybody has seen, COVID-19 have bring people homes and they have to fix their homes. So we are specializing in residential, from the floors to your walls. So we just took advantage of it and absolutely help our clients to elaborate a plan to help them, renovate their homes.
What great. Well, yes. What encouraged you to make that decision, right, to improve?
So I think that the clients definitely start seeing what is going on in their homes, and they wanted to do something different. So I will say that for CIC Floors, seeing what the clients wanted to do, we have to come up with a plan to be able to provide ideas to how to find good products, how to find solutions for their situation at their homes. They are looking to, demo a wall or renovate the kitchen. What about eco-friendly products? So we reinvent the wheel. We have to really reinvent ourselves. We recalibrate, stop, and then decided to really visited different vendors that had opportunities in reallocate everything that is done in online. For example, we have a Shaw that has a tool that called Floorvana, where our clients can visit, they can scan their pictures of their homes and select a product, and they will be able to see their homes with the floors. Technographica also have an amazing tool that you can see their wallpaper all around your home. So we had our own tool in our website as well, using all our different vendors and our own tool. I think that our clients were easy to manage, to make a decision what products they want in their homes. We have to also think about what other things we can bring. So we just visit our full line of eco-friendly products that we've been pushing for years to our clients to think about how to preserve their homes. You know, their homes is the foundation of your, the floors are the foundation of your home. So don't leave your floors for just simple things. Think about eco-friendly products. That's where your pet play, your kids play. That's where you dance, and you really have to dance in good floors.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you bring up. And I can see the changes that you've made and what really motivated you to do that, which is great. And, you know, Daniel, kind of following along the same lines, you know, how has the pandemic affected you, and how has it affected marketing and customers' perception of branding in general?
Well, you know, branding and marketing for me is two different things. I always call it phase one and phase two, and it's the easiest way that I can explain it. Phase one, it's an ongoing phase, and phase two as well, but you cannot go into two if you haven't finished the first. And the first one is, it's branding. It's where, you know, you're making sure that your company looks good, either if it's print or digital. And this is important, specifically right now in these times, because if you don't have a strong image online, then you are going to struggle with your competition. A lot of the people nowadays, you know, they're cutting the time. They're not going to go to your brick and mortar. They're going to first check out your website. They're going to check out your Facebook, your Instagram. And if you're not documenting on a daily basis what you're actually doing in your business, putting that online, then they're not going to believe it, and they're not going to see the true you or the real face of your business. That was really important. And I've been preaching this for like 6 years, man. Like, I've been really at it. Every meeting that I go into, every client that I talk to, this is like my motto, and I've always done it this way. And this pandemic, what it did to me specifically was just reassure me that what I was doing was the correct way, and that all the advice that I give my clients, and clients that didn't even hire me, but at least I got to sit down in front of them, it's that advice that it's really marking a difference now. Because if you started it 4 or 5 years ago, then now you probably could have avoided the pandemic. Now it's not like the last straw. It's not the end of the world, because you can still jump into it. And that's when marketing comes in. And that's where, for example, one of our top services has helped out a lot of our clients, and is lead generation. Lead generation is saved many construction companies that I work with. For example, I have many roofers. I have people who do floorings. Like, I'm smaller than Clara, but you know, they are putting on floors and things like that. And they don't have the ability to go and do an estimate. They don't have the ability to go inside a client's house. They don't have the ability to door knocks anymore. Door knocking anymore, because the pandemic won't let them. So what did we do? We filmed a video, we did a promotion, and we ran some Facebook ads that at the end is going to say, click the link, leave your information, and we'll contact you. Yeah. We've actually not only provided the lead, but helped them systemize their whole sales process, in the sense of, once they get the lead, they're going to request a video of what they need to do in order for them not to actually be face-to-face with the client. Right. I think that's the mentality that all businesses need to jump into.
And that's great. No, I really agree with what you said, right? This COVID has really forced us to do a lot of things that we probably didn't think about doing before. And so, Tanya, I'd like to ask you, right? Because same thing as Daniel was just talking about regarding marketing and branding, Same thing with technology. A lot of businesses have known that they need to use technology to improve, but nobody really took it very seriously, right? They just kind of, yeah, I'll get to it somewhere down the road. But now with all this going on, it's like you have to, right? You have to use technology. So how important do you really think it is for business owners to leverage technology to grow their business? And if so, why?
Well, it is very important. And the reason is because if we don't evolve and adapt, we may end up being the next Tower Records or Border Books, as easy as that. So a shift to technology is now survival for most of our businesses. And you know, you talked earlier about the K-shaped recovery, where companies who have adopted technology and are digital are doing really well, where those that haven't and they're still doing the same thing, very sadly, they are not doing as well. So we have winners and we have losers. So, and the reason is because like we have mentioned, we have tools that already existed before COVID, where we're using it, but not as much as we in demand that as we're using it right now. And specifically the collaboration tools, where you don't really need to go to the office. The employees don't need to go to the offices anymore because they can, you know, use a collaboration tool to meet, to do teaming, and to be adaptive, to be innovative, and also be resilient. So yes. We need to know how to adapt, and we need to know how to evolve. And if we are not there yet, then we need to get trained. Yes. Or train or business owners how to be adaptive and eventually evolve.
I love what you're saying, Tanya, because it's true, right? We really need to rethink things a lot. And technology, obviously being a big important factor of all of this, will help us to do that. So you know, going again along those same lines where you're talking about reinventing yourself insofar as what technology can you use, if we took that a step further, Clara, what are you doing to survive during this COVID era, right? Did you have to reinvent yourself? You know, did you, again, going along those lines, come up with maybe new revenue streams? You know, how has that helped you, and how much have you grown since you did any of those changes?
Well, you know, as Daniel mentioned, most of the floating companies have to go and do a lot of, you know, face-to-face marketing. When COVID-19 hit us, we have to really concentrate our budget that were spread on different venues. We just concentrated on social media and technology. We decided to not spend too much money in different areas that we were, you know, doing marketing, because it will not allow us to really captivate the attention of our audience and our target also. So we are doing a lot of social media, and like I say, all the tools that we're using right now, all the online tools that we have on our website and also on our vendors' website that the clients can access to look at our products directly and see it on their homes are super important. I think we definitely have to be open to technology during this time, because that's what the people are asking for.
Right, and strategically speaking, have you designed like new revenue streams for the business as well?
Absolutely. So the eco-friendly products that we are promoting, that's one thing. The other thing was the wallpaper. We also promote that more, but we put a lot of effort on our CIC homes. That is our main, right now, people don't want to do just floors. Right now we are bringing all our kitchen renovation, our home renovation. During the pandemic, we have renovated 3 homes, and we weren't even thinking about that. And yes, it's more revenue for us, but it was also a good opportunity for a client to have one vendor that can provide everything at the same time.
Right. No, that's great. So looking at this, you know, creating new revenue streams will help obviously to increase more sales for the business, which is really important during this time. You know, Daniel, now that everyone is online, right? Because again, we need to create more revenue streams, but on top of creating the revenue streams, we need to leverage all this marketing to help. So what skills are most required from a marketing company, and how can a company stick out of the pack, because now everybody is online?
Video. Let me say that one more time, please. Video. Video is so important. It's going to mark the difference. It's going to see who you really are. If you're not doing videos, you are really just being another sticker on a light pole in the middle of Manhattan. You gotta, you like that metaphor? You really gotta do videos. If you don't like doing videos yourself, then hire somebody to do the videos. But you have to get out there with video. Video is the strongest form of advertisement that we have now, especially in social media. Get used to your 15-second videos, your 30-second videos, your 1-minute videos. And especially the most important thing about video is be constant with it. You gotta do it at least once a week, at least twice a week, you know? The moment that you're doing videos of teaching people how to do things, of maybe showing your sales, of giving them tips and value, those are the videos that are gonna start creating a audience, and the audience creates into customers. And when you're gonna go sell and pitch a customer, then you're gonna say, hey, look, don't listen to me, just watch the videos.
Well, and this is a great point, right? I love that. I believe people are very visual, so they're definitely going to want to see more, and they'll absorb more if they're seeing it through their eyes, right? So, okay, so now that we're online so much more, Tanya, how important is it to have cybersecurity, or to consider cybersecurity as part of our work, or how we should protect ourselves? Because we're online, we're more exposed, aren't we?
Yes, it's very much the beauty of being online is you know, create all kind of opportunity. But since we have COVID-19, the hacking attack had increased 400%, as you mentioned earlier. So what is going on? What's happening? Well, no one is going to their office to work, right? So the hackers are sitting now at home with no money and a lot of time in their hands. And what are they going to do? Hack. Who are they going to hack? You and your business. So because of this whole situation, because now the employees are at home using technology, using just a router that is the only thing that connects them to the world, and they don't have in the headquarters all the IT infrastructure, all the IT team, and all the cybersecurity team that rapidly can go on and protect you. You don't have that in home, okay? Yeah. So they know that. And then they're using the same tools that we're using at home to work. Right. And so that is why we have seen an increase, 400% of hacking attacks, and they're not using anything sophisticated. They're using the same old attacks, but they know they're gonna get into people's computers because they know a lot of people don't have update their applications or system operating. They're using all Windows, Microsoft, and so they know they're very vulnerable, right? And right. So one of the things they are using as well, and we need to be watch out, and this is something I want to share with all of you, is that they're using all the trends that we have right now. What are the trends? PPP, applications and loans, right? We have COVID emails. We have census and voting registration. So when you see an incoming of emails with these kind of attachments, watch out, because it is to hack you. Yeah. It is a phishing attack, coordinated attack to be able to get into your systems and your computers and to be able to leave a backdoor for them to extract your information.
Great. Right? Yes, those are all great points. Definitely, I think a lot of us need to be more educated on that. And that's why people like you exist, right? To help us with those types of things. So this is really important. And then, you know, looking also at the big picture, right? I've been hearing a lot about customer centricity, right? You know, some of my teachers at Wharton University have been really focusing on how important it is to go back to customer centricity. And this is an open question for all of you. Have any of you seen a change in customers' needs and their approach of how they're looking for things?
From my perspective, absolutely. I think that my clients, of course, they are very scared, and they're trying to figure out a way to understand how they're going to be in their homes, working from home, and also take that opportunity to change that kitchen that they've been wanted to change for so long, right? So the way that they've been approaching is definitely through the phone. If they are renovating a basement, they just try to communicate with my expert, just opening the door and letting come in and then we talk over the phone and explain what we're suggesting. Exchanging the text with pictures. We mail in pictures. We mail in products. We are visiting the clients and leaving stuff at the front door. I think that the shopping have definitely gone virtual. Is Amazon, as you know, and any other shipping company has definitely made the point that that's what is needed. And my clients are using it, and we are supporting them as much as we can in elaborating the project. So,
thank you. That's excellent. Well, we're coming to the end now of this panel, and there's so many other questions that we could ask. We could be here for probably a couple more hours of picking the brains of our three panelists. So just some key practices I would recommend at this stage of the COVID crisis, right, is focus on the future, right? If you're not adapting, you're not growing. You have to stay ahead of the game in order not just to survive, but to thrive, right? I cannot emphasize enough the need and the importance to reinvent yourselves is absolutely key. I recommend taking an afternoon with your team to strategize, adjust your vision for the future, incorporate all these things that we've been hearing about today, right? Especially regarding technology and regarding marketing, as you heard from our panel. And get some help if you don't know how to do all of that, right? There's a resource that you have to help all of you. So on behalf of the Latin American Association and the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and all our panelists, thank you for joining us. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bienvenidos a nuestra conversación política. Welcome to our political conversation. This year, Georgia voters will elect 2 U.S. senators. Normally, only one U.S. Senate race appears on a ballot during an election cycle. This time, however, voters are presented with a unique situation. The regular election for U.S. Senate features incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue going up against Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. It's important to mention that Senator Perdue is at the conclusion of his first term. The other U.S. Senate seat for the state will also be up for grabs in a special election. Georgia's former senior U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson retired at the end of 2019, well before the end of his term. Businesswoman Kelly Loeffler was appointed by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp to serve until voters could participate in a special election to serve until the conclusion of Isakson's term in 2022. The race for that seat will be what's called a jungle primary, which means that it is an all-comers race, allowing multiple people from a single party to participate in the election. In order to win the seat outright, a candidate would need to receive 50% plus 1 vote in the November election. If no single candidate meets that threshold, the top 2 vote-getters will face each other in a runoff election. In addition to Loeffler, other prominent candidates running for the office include Republican Congressman Doug Collins, who represents Georgia's 9th district, and the Reverend Raphael Warnock, pastor of Atlanta's historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, a popular Democratic candidate. I must disclose that my one-on-one conversations with the candidates are being taped the day it was announced that President Donald Trump tested positive for COVID-19, and we cannot foresee what the current events might be the day you are watching these interviews. I will keep the topics focused on issues that are important to Latinos in Georgia. Here is my first interview.
Mr. Ossoff, again, thank you for being with us. We will start this series of political conversations with you. So,
Gracias, Mariela. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. A strong policy issue of your campaign is the protection of Social Security and Medicare, along with strengthening the Affordable Care Act. Are you concerned that the current agenda of this administration will weaken those programs?
Yes, I am. Medicare and Social Security are at risk right now. Our country made a commitment almost a century ago that we would not allow our seniors to go destitute or homeless or without health care. And these are programs that seniors have paid into and invested in throughout their entire lives. In the Senate, I will work to strengthen and protect
Medicare and Social Security, as well as to protect the Affordable Care Act and its protections for people with pre-existing conditions like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, protections that my opponent, Senator David Perdue, has voted to repeal.
Mr. Ossoff, aside from the current pandemic, we are also in the midst of a racial and social justice reckoning in this country. How your support of criminal justice reform will benefit Latinos in our state?
Well, I think we need leaders, Mariela, who are honest and open about the fact that there is race and class bias in our criminal justice system. And this bias harms the Latino community. We need equal justice and equal protection under the law. Justice should be blind to race and to class. Every single American should be treated the same by law enforcement, by prosecutors, by judges. And so I will seek to champion in the US Senate a new Civil Rights Act so that the US Constitution's guarantee of equal protection under the law is made real in daily practice. And no one needs to fear that because of how they look or their background or how much money they don't have or have, that they will face unequal justice or persecution.
Well, that also, you should include people with accents.
Indeed, people with accents, and this also includes when we talk about immigration enforcement.
Absolutely.
Law enforcement, federal agents must not presume or profile Latinos because of how they look or how they speak. We have to defend the civil liberties of everyone in this country.
Thank you. I'm going to go to another topic that I know is very important to you. And I'm going to use the example of Hispanics leaders in states like California, because they have led clean energy initiatives. How will you enroll Latino voices through your environmental and infrastructural proposals?
Well, I think that infrastructure and clean energy can unite the people of this state, can unite people behind investments that will upgrade our quality of life, transit, transportation, broadband internet, health clinics, research and development, environmental cleanup, necessary massive investments in clean energy. And all communities will benefit from these investments. And there are brilliant entrepreneurs in the Latino community who are making amazing progress in creating businesses that produce and innovate in renewable and clean energy. And I look forward to working with those Latino business leaders to ensure that Georgia's Latino community benefits from these investments, because there are two things we have to make sure happen. First of all, that public investment in infrastructure and clean energy doesn't just flow through the good old network to people who are already well connected politically. We have to make sure that every community in our state participates equitably in this economic opportunity. And second of all, when we're talking about infrastructure projects, we have to make sure that it's not marginalized or underrepresented communities who, for example, are victimized by environmental degradation. Environmental justice is an important issue. And too often it's those who lack power and lack a voice or lack representation who bear the brunt of pollution or toxic contamination, or even just unsightly infrastructure projects that may reduce the quality of life in the community.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Let's go now to the topic of taxes. According to the publication Kiplinger, in Georgia, we have high sale taxes and moderate property taxes. And we are a long way from being named a tax-friendly state. What is your plan to lower taxes for small businesses and also for working families, a topic that is very, very important to people in our community?
Absolutely. I want to lower taxes for working families and small businesses.
Mr. Ossoff, my last question is going to be the same for all candidates. Why should Latinos choose you in this election?
My mother came to America as an immigrant when she was 23 years old because she believed in this country. That doesn't mean that she indulged some fantastical idea of our past. She understood its complexity. She understood America's flaws, but she also admired and recognized our capacity for progress, and that the principle of universal human rights was written into our founding documents. And she became an activist, marching for women's rights, and she became a citizen because she recognized that participation in our democracy is the way to move this country forward. We need to recommit to that founding ideal of universal human rights. We need to heal and unite and focus on what brings us together, our shared interests in prosperity and health, in economic opportunity, in education that's accessible to all, those basic building blocks of human flourishing. That should be our focus, not what divides us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with our community. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mariela. Anytime.
Thank you, Congressman Collins, for joining us. You are our second guest on this portion of the conference.
Thank you.
As you well know, Northeast Georgia is home to a thriving agriculture industry, and that industry thrives in great part thanks to Latino hands, Hispanic workers. If you are elected to the Senate, what would you propose to help farmers, ranchers, growers, and processors who depend on Hispanic workers to succeed?
That's a great question. Something we've already been working on. And I think this is the part that we need to understand. There's a big disconnect many times in our country discussing illegal immigration, but also not focusing on legal immigration. And I think those are the two things that we need to focus on. Everyone, I think, would agree a secure border and a secure process has to be part of the equation. But one of the things that I really wanted to work on in this last Congress, but yet, frankly, the other side shut us down, was H-2A. Really redoing that program. Georgia is the largest user of H-2A labor in the country, and if we could make that work where the laborers could come in, they could earn their living, go back home, have a little more freedom of travel, that is something that we really need, because a lot of the laborers that do come in, they enjoy being able to come in and work, but they do want to go home as well. And so I think we've got to make sure that we keep that up. And H-1B, there's other issues here. So for me, it's about providing the proper labor force that we need, also providing a way that there can be much more flexibility, not only for the farmer, but for the worker as well. So the worker is protected, but the farmer also has the labor that they need. We need to continue to focus on that and not just simply get stuck on one or the other. And I think that's the best part that we've seen so far. In our poultry industry up here, especially our processors, but my friends down in South Georgia with row crops and others need that help as well.
Thank you. In your opinion, America boasts one of the most generous legal immigration systems, as you were mentioning before. What would change with you in the Senate to enact a smarter and more efficient immigration system?
Well, I think what we have an opportunity, and I would say on the possibility of, and the probability, I believe, of President Trump being reelected, I think he really wants to find a solution for this. I've talked with him on many occasions about this, and I think for me in the Senate, there's a chance to come to a consensus that can blend the two aspects that really are out there right now, the more liberal aspect or the more open, immigration kind of system to a more conservative closed system. There is a place in the middle, but it takes someone willing to go in and find the compromise. We've done that. We've proven that in other areas such as criminal justice reform and other things, that I think I can bring that to the immigration front. Is also someone who actually understands this issue, who's been there, who's actually lived with it in our districts, in our state, but also as a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, we dealt with it all across the country over the past few years. And so I think bringing just a forceful voice that is a conservative that people understand is not going to just open the borders, but also have one that is security orientated, that we can have a mix. I think that's what you need in the Senate right now, is a strong voice to actually find the compromise needed, that we can find a solution to our immigration system. I know that's what the president wants, and that's what I want as well.
Congressman, I know that it's very important for you, the standing of the United States as a beacon of hope and democracy in the world. How would you propose, as a United States Senator, that the State Department works with Latin American countries to promote American ideals?
That's a great question, because I think it's actually the thing that we miss so many times. Sometimes our relationships, we forget that helping countries, and especially our Latin American countries and others, if they had help and assistance in making sure that they are able to not only work with their economies, work with their jobs, it is actually a balancing out effect so that they can grow. A healthy Latin America is a healthy Americas. And I think that's something that we need to have. And the State Department can help that by programs, that help businesses, how we can open up our markets. Trade is a huge issue there, and especially from an agricultural perspective. So I think the State Department can lead the way in not only being the beacon of the American ideals, but also helping incorporate the ideals of Latin America into the policies and goals, so that we have a shared vision and not one that seems to be, antithesis of each other.
Thank you. In the midst of this pandemic, for all of Georgians, healthcare is at top of their concerns. What would you do to improve our healthcare system if you are elected?
Well, one of the best things that we can do right now, and it's actually pushed us this way, but it may sound a little different at first. One of the healthcare systems too is our rural areas, and especially we've already been talking about agricultural workers. We've been talking about the farms, which could be many miles away from the local healthcare facilities. Is this issue of broadband and telemedicine, being able to connect our communities, even for those who may not want to go into a hospital or a doctor's office, they can have that access through telehealth. But it's going to have to start with a strong broadband commitment, a strong rural healthcare commitment. To do so, we also got to make it where we have insurance options that are more affordable and also, frankly, competitive. We can't. One of the problems that we have now is no matter what was said about Obamacare, what it did do, the actual fact is it reduced the number of options for small businesses, from farms to small business owners across the spectrum. We've got to be able to have more competition out there so that prices are lower, that you or I could take the plan that we want to model and we pay for, instead of being forced upon us in a situation in which forces insurers out, and frankly though also forces doctors out. That's something that's not often talked about. We've got to have plans in healthcare that involves our doctors, instead of them opting out of these plans, so that nobody, that it doesn't matter if you have them or not, they need to be willingly partnered in this as well.
I'm going to go back to what you said at the beginning, the access to broadband, because we know that you are very invested in this, and you have recognized it as a prerequisite for economic growth in this country. How would you work with technology companies to bring the latest technology to rural and underserved communities?
Oh, great question. Thank you for that, because this is the next generation questions. We've got to ask these questions now. And we have worked with our broadband. I've had to struggle, frankly, with a company up here in Northeast Georgia, Windstream, and it frankly was not serving as they needed to be. And it sort of got us involved. Most of these companies, they need to compete, and we understand that. But the Connect America funds are designed to expand broadband, to expand access, not compete with each other. So we put in bills that actually have made the restrictions on the Connect America funds more prominent, basically also giving the chance that other companies could get money off of the Connect America funds before the other monies were expended. We've also been looking at the rural Gigabyte Opportunity Act, which actually allows states like Georgia to partner with localities and say, in these areas, we're going to have an opportunity zone sort of for Gigabyte opportunity for companies to come in and invest the backbone materials for tax credits and incentives, so that then they can use any technology out there to provide the gigabytes that needed for service. So they could use point to point, they could use wireless, they could use even the white space right now unused on the UHF cycle, anything that needs to happen. And we've seen some really good results up here with smaller companies who have now taken over the broadband services for some of our local governments because the local governments were so frustrated with the lack of service that they were getting. So we've seen some success. We know how to do this. State of Georgia's worked on this with the EMCs and others. We just got to provide everything on the table, because just like in the 20s and 30s when it was determined electricity needed to be run to everywhere that's possible, broadband is now developed into a sense where I believe we have to provide access. It can't be provided for free, but it's got to have access, affordable access from the big cities all the way out to the country.
Very good. Congressman, this is my last question. It has been the same for all the candidates interviewed today. What should Latinos choose you in this election?
Because I believe in them. I believe in our whole state. I believe in a population that needs to be more than just a slogan of one Georgia. I think we need all of our backgrounds and groups to come together, because we have a great state. We have a conservative state that is actually growth and opportunity. We need to acknowledge our differences. We need to find ways to help, as we've already talked about immigration issues and how we expand our business. But we've also got to talk about educational opportunities. We also have to talk about is broadband. But for me, it goes back to a simple premise in my life that I believe that everyone is precious in God's sight. I believe that for anybody to look at us, it says I'm going to have their best interests at heart, just like I've always had in Congress, and I want to continue to do so for them as a senator.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me.
Reverend Warnock, the participants of this conference just heard from Congressman Collins. My first question to you is, how would you ensure that the voices of the Latino electorate in Georgia will be taken into consideration if you are elected to represent us in the Senate?
Thank you so very much, and it's wonderful to be here with you today. Let me say that my whole career has been focused on giving a voice to the voiceless, and to make sure that all of us are able to participate in this wonderful and noble experiment in representative democracy. I think a good indication of what someone will do once in office is what they were doing prior to running. And I've been registering voters all across this state. I was chairman of the New Georgia Project. We've registered some 400,000 voters across this state, mainly people of color, Black voters, Latinx voters, members of the AAPI community, students and women. And we've seen the absolute impact of that on elections in Georgia. And the reason why I'm so focused on that is because you know, the electorate impacts the shape and the character of public policy. If some people are outside of that discussion, certain things don't get done and they don't even become a part of the conversation. And so I've been absolutely committed to a diverse electorate so that we have the kind of public policy that serves us all well in the areas of healthcare, education, immigration, voting rights, a whole range of concerns.
And we're going to be talking about that. We know that one of the top pillars of your platform is healthcare. And as you are well aware, people of color, especially Black and Latino Americans, have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. How important to you is to protect and improve the Affordable Care Act?
Oh, I've been a strong advocate of healthcare for years. I believe that healthcare is a human right. And it is certainly something the wealthiest nation in the world can and should provide for all of its citizens. And so when we were trying to get the Affordable Care Act passed years ago, I was preaching about it from my pulpit. After all, I preach in memory of one who spent much of his ministry healing the sick. And so I believe in healthcare. And when Georgia refused to expand Medicaid in this state, I was standing up in the governor's office by sitting down. I had a demonstration there. I remember holding a sign with a quote from Dr. King that said, of all the injustices, inequality in healthcare is the most shocking and the most inhumane. And so I've literally gotten arrested fighting for people in the Medicaid gap. At that time, there were 400,000 Georgians in the Medicaid gap. Now we have over 500,000 Georgians in the Medicaid gap. And our rural hospitals are closing, in part because we're not expanding Medicaid in this state. As a U.S. Senator, I plan to make it even easier than it is right now for Georgia to do the right thing and push us all closer towards universal health care.
Reverend, at the beginning, you mentioned a part of my next question. You said, you talked about voting access and voting rights. That is also an important topic for our community. And what is your message to Latino registered voters who have never participated in the electoral process because they are disenchanted with the process, or maybe they feel intimidated?
Sure. Well, I think that the vote, as John Lewis, my church member, used to say, is almost sacred, is how he described it. I think that a vote is a prayer. It's a kind of prayer for the kind of world that we want to live in. And it is a way of praying with your feet. And so I want to encourage everybody to exercise your power. The folks who engage in voter suppression do so in order to demoralize certain parts of the electorate and to have people become so discouraged that they say, why bother at all? But we've seen over and over again in this state that when we stand up, when we use our voices, there is an impact in public policy. Georgia is literally changing before our very eyes. I submit that we're not a battleground state, we're the battleground state. My friend Stacey Abrams ran for governor in this state in 2018. I know folks say, well, she didn't quite make it. Well, think about this. She lost by less than 55,000 votes out of 4 million. And this really is a result of the longstanding work that civil rights groups and other groups have been doing for years, registering people of color in this state. She lost by less than 55,000 votes. The good news is that since 2018, we've registered 800,000 new voters in the state of Georgia. 49% of them are people of color, and 45% of them are under 30. We have already a winning coalition. We have the kind of electorate that we need. It is diverse, it is forward-looking, it is inclusive. And if we stand up together, we win. We outperformed Republicans during the June 9th primary in spite of the voter suppression. There were long lines. The good news is that folks pushed through, kept the faith, exercised their vote, and we outperformed them by every measure. People who believe in their message don't engage in voter suppression. And so increasingly, we're seeing politicians who are concerned about the electorate. And so rather than have the people pick their elected officials, the elected officials are trying to pick their voters. And so we have to push hard against this. There's nothing more important. And when we stand up, we win. We're well positioned to flip this state. I'm deeply hopeful, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
Reverend, the subject of this conference is the Latino prosperity. What would you do to advance economic opportunities for Latino workers in our state?
You know, someone who grew up down in South Georgia and Savannah, Georgia, in public housing, and a dad who was a hard worker. My dad used to haul old junk cars and pull them on the back of a rig that he designed the mechanisms himself. And he'd take them down to the steel yard, and that's how he took care of his family. And he poured into me a deep regard and appreciation for hard work and the dignity of working with your hands. And too often in our country, there's a way in which workers are devalued and their contributions are diminished. And so you will have in me as a United States Senator, somebody who is very concerned that workers increasingly in our country are not sharing in the prosperity that they are creating. And so we have to make sure that they are able to organize. We have to support the PRO Act, which will strengthen the right of workers always to organize, because it is their collective strength that gives them the ability to negotiate. We need a livable wage. Dr. King's last great stand in Memphis was for workers. He went to Memphis in order to defend garbage collectors, people who are often ignored and are invisible. But imagine what would life be like without the folks who recycle and pick up the trash and make sure that we're all able to live our lives with a sense of dignity and decency. Dr. King died fighting for workers. The sad news is that the minimum wage in 1968 had more purchasing power than the minimum wage in 2020. We're seeing an increasing gap in wealth inequality, and that's because we have in Washington the best senators and congresspersons that money can buy. And you have my promise that I will be unbought, as Shirley Chisholm used to say, and unbossed. I'm there to work for the people, and I think the people of Georgia deserve an elected senator who's not so focused on the next election that he's not thinking about the next generation. That's what I've done all of these years, and that's what I'll do in the U.S. Senate.
Reverend, what about education? The state of Georgia is currently ranked as one of the least educated. When we take into account the fastest growing demographic in our schools is Latino children, what do you propose to better our education?
You know, I grew up in public housing, and I'm a product of the public school system. I believe that education is absolutely the cornerstone of democracy. I can't wait to get in the U.S. Senate to confirm a Secretary of Education who actually believes in education. I don't believe that a child's outcome should be determined by their parents' income. So when you look at me, you're looking at the product of good federal policy. You know, it was not easy for me to get to where I am. I'm first college graduate in my family. Out of 12 children, I'm number 11. And when I think about my own journey, I'm the product of Head Start, a federal program which gives poor children, preschoolers, the access that they need so that their brains can grow and develop at that time when we're learning and absorbing so much. When you look at me, you're looking at the product of a good public school education. And increasingly, we're seeing diminishing returns as our public school systems are being challenged by those who are not committed to that idea. And when you look at me, you're looking at the product of Pell Grants and low interest student loans so I could get a good college education. And so I want to make sure that young people all over this state have access to good quality schools, that parents have access to good preschool education, and that we see that as part of the working infrastructure in our country. And I want to ensure that when young people graduate from college or from junior college or vocational school, that they're not so overloaded with debt that they are unable to dream and to fly. Student loans now exceed credit card debt in this country, and auto loans. That is a problem not just for those young people in Latinx communities and other communities all across this country. That is a drag on the American economy. We don't need our young people to have a mortgage before they have a mortgage. We need to have them come out of school with the freedom to fly and to imagine and to be entrepreneurs and contribute to a vibrant economy.
Reverend, immigration reform is always a top issue for our community. The current situation at the border has been described as a humanitarian crisis. What are your thoughts on fixing this problem?
You know, I've been engaged on this issue for many years. And of course, one of the flashpoints was a few years ago when we heard the horrible stories about young people, children, being separated from their parents, the trauma related to that, and then locked up in cages. This is not who we are, not at our best. It flies in the face of our values. You know, I often remind people that Jesus was a dreamer whose parents smuggled him, if you will, as an undocumented immigrant into Egypt in order to protect him from the excesses of a despot. And so when I look into the eyes of dreamers, I see my own children. These are young people who have only known this country. And these are communities that are already contributing much. They pay their taxes. They make an absolute contribution to the American economy, and we need to pull people out of the shadows so that they can have a dignified path to citizenship and contribute to this bold and vibrant experiment called democracy. I believe in the American covenant, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. We are a nation of immigrants. And we've seen the ugly forces of bigotry and xenophobia rise up time and time again in this country, against Irish immigrants, against all kinds of immigrants. And once again, we got to remind ourselves of the covenant that we have with one another, push back against those in power who have no vision. And so they traffic in division. They do not know how to lead us, and so they're trying to divide us, convince us that our neighbors are the problem. Our neighbors are not our problem. And with a broad vision that embraces all of us, I think we create not only a more humane society, I think we will create a more prosperous economy.
Thank you. And my last question is going to be the same for all the candidates talking to me today. Why should Latinos choose you in this election?
Again, I think an indication of what someone will do in office is what they were doing before they were elected. My highest ambition really is service, and I've committed my life to it. I will stand up for ordinary people in Washington, D.C. I believe members of the Latinx community are wondering why no one in Washington is looking out for them. I assure you that when I get a private briefing about coronavirus or whatever's going on, and I have that privilege as a U.S. Senator, I won't be thinking about how to protect myself or my own assets. I'll be thinking about how to protect your family. And I'd be deeply honored to have that privilege.
Thank you. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts, your ideas with our participants in our community. Thank you again, Reverend Warnock.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Willie Rivero, Vice President of Automotive Maintenance and Engineering for UPS. I'm honored today to introduce Juan Perez, the keynote speaker for the 2020 Latino Prosperity Conference. Juan is the Chief Information and Engineering Officer for UPS. He is a member of the UPS Executive Leadership Team and has responsibility for all technology and engineering functions. He currently serves on the Hershey's Company's Board of Directors and is the Executive Advisor for the UPS African American Business Resource Group. Juan is a proud graduate of the University of Southern California, where he received a Bachelor in Science in Industrial Systems Engineering and a Master's of Science in Computer and Manufacturing Engineering. For 7 years, Juan was a lecturer at USC, where he taught courses in engineering, quality control, and operations management. He was named one of 3 distinguished alumni by the USC School of Engineering. Juan began his UPS career 30 years ago as an intern. Since then, he has held assignments in operations, industrial engineering, process management, and technology in the U.S. and international business units. He currently manages a budget of over $6 billion between IT and engineering. His engineering responsibilities include industrial engineering planning, measurement, and quality, buildings and systems, including building construction and corporate sustainability, as well as automotive maintenance and engineering, which leads groups that are in charge with defining the future of operational technology strategies for UPS. That includes robotics, automation, and network optimization. Juan holds 17 issued patents and has another 20 patent pending applications. His work with the UPS technology and engineering teams helped develop Orion, the on-road integrated optimization and navigation system that optimizes delivery routes to improve service levels and operational efficiency. This was a major technology accomplishment that significantly changed the delivery and pickup routing process at UPS. Juan's rise to the C-suite in corporate America started from humble beginnings, deeply rooted in family and a service to his local community. He was born in Mexico City, the son of Cuban immigrant parents who sacrificed everything to give their children an opportunity for a better life and the hope for freedom. He's an American dream story, and the driving force for his success begins with a strong commitment to hard work, higher education, and family. Without further ado, please welcome Juan Perez.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all safe and enjoying this great conference. We have heard of an impressive group of speakers and panelists who have provided great insights and much to think about. And it is truly an honor for me to spend a few minutes closing the conference with just a few thoughts. I really like the theme of the conference, Latino Prosperity. The word prosperity means being successful, flourishing, or a thriving condition. I really believe in my heart that Latinos in the U.S. have prospered over the years, but there is so much more to do to help our people and our communities continue to prosper. And our country's prosperity is dependent on the prosperity of Latinos, but actually is dependent on the prosperity of everyone. Sessions like this help us chart a course to continue to make progress. Now, although, as you can hear, I speak with an accent, I am a proud American who loves our country. And no matter the issues, the challenges, and the uncertainties that we're living today, we live in freedom, something we should never take for granted. I was born in Mexico City 54 years ago. My mom and dad were immigrants who lived a comfortable and great life in Cuba, until one day their entire world fell apart. My dad ran a highly successful business in the textile industry. His manufacturing plants made work uniforms for different enterprises in Cuba and other countries, and his business was truly prosperous. One day, he was given a choice: to support a regime he did not agree with and which oppressed his entrepreneurial spirit, or leave everything behind and venture to a new land with my mother and basically nothing else. He chose the latter and left as a political refugee to the U.S. Not able to speak the language, my dad decided to go to Mexico, and with support from great people, a mindset of quality, hard work, and humility, he rebuilt his business in a foreign country and was very successful. His business prospered. A Latino business prospered as a result of my dad's ability to connect with people and his genuine interest in his employees and their well-being. In my view, my dad's story is the perfect story of Latino prosperity. And he passed his work ethic and dedication on to my brother and I. He valued personal development and made sure that we received the best education possible. My dad was my mentor, my role model, and my inspiration. And to this date, he still lives in my heart and in my mind. That's why I believe that prosperity is based on a solid family foundation. At 18, I was given the opportunity to study abroad. I was accepted in 2 of the 3 schools that I applied to, Stanford and USC, the University of Southern California. UCLA actually rejected me. So you can imagine how I feel when I see UCLA play against any team. Now, I graduated with a degree in Industrial and Systems Engineering and a master's in Computer and Manufacturing Engineering from USC. And I was also there a teacher for 7 years. My education has opened doors for me to find not only my job with UPS, but many other opportunities, and gave me an advantage that many at the time I started with the company did not have. I had the capability to link processes, measurement, and methods to technology to actually improve our service and our productivity. And that is why today I can tell you that prosperity is also enabled by a good education. Now, I've worked for UPS for almost 31 years. I could not have selected a better company to work for. UPS is truly a fascinating organization with more than 525,000 employees, operating in 220 plus countries and territories, and in many different branches of logistics. But UPS is also an organization that values diversity of thought. Actually, UPS is an organization that values diversity of everything. I have learned much in my 30 years with the company. One of the most important lessons has been to approach every assignment and every role with professionalism, with dedication, and with what our founder used to say at UPS, Jim Casey, constructive dissatisfaction. And much of my prosperity in UPS has been the result of hard work and commitment to the values, to the objectives, and the mission of this great company. That, combined with the support and the guidance of great leaders, has helped me learn and advance over the years. Because you see, prosperity is reached with the support of others. Prosperity also requires sacrifice and a willingness to sometimes do what you think you do not need to do. And I'll give you one example. When I started with UPS, I was a loader and a driver. Quite frankly, I never expected to do those jobs when I graduated. Now, granted, I worked in Beverly Hills 90210, but the experiences showed me how the company worked, the amazing work that our people do, the expectations of the job, and very importantly, how we could do things better through the use of technology. To this date in my current role, I still reflect back on those experiences in the way that we make decisions and the way that we design solutions. And those experiences I will never forget. They have helped me connect with the company in ways I could not have done by working from afar. So with that, prosperity also requires resiliency. UPSers all over the world have always shown incredible resiliency to get things done, to deliver what our customers need, where they need it, when they need it, and with high precision, and also, very importantly, with great consistency, no matter where you are. I have always been amazed by the enormous efforts that our people put into doing what they do each and every day. But that resiliency has been more evident these days than ever before. The global pandemic has required our people to adjust to new ways of working, to new safety protocols, to new procedures, and to significant changes in our operating models. These changes have been driven by consumer behavior, changes driven by remote work, by businesses adjusting their own operating models, and an explosion of e-commerce that has driven more residential deliveries at this time of the year than any other year. And we have, in essence, been operating in peak mode for several months now, and we're currently preparing for a traditional peak season, which is the time of Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays. So that takes me to another condition for prosperity, and that is the ability to change and adapt, no matter the conditions. The COVID pandemic made us change the way we did business very quickly. I believe it has helped us provide essential services to customers around the world, and the commitment and drive of all UPSers have helped. This, combined with our strong portfolio of services and our customer focus, has allowed us to support governments, businesses, and consumers throughout the crisis. I'm actually especially proud of my IT and engineering groups for what they have done to support our company. A short few months ago, we did not have a policy that supported thousands of employees working from home. Our IT team, in record time, prepared our infrastructure to support close to 40,000 remote workers without a glitch. Our technology today continues to support the needs of shippers and consumers, and it helps us run UPS. And during these times of uncertainty, one thing has definitely remained certain for me. Technology has played and will continue to play a key role in the prosperity of our business. I have found many growth opportunities in my own career in the technology field. And I'm often asked about what excites me the most about technology these days. And yes, I'm excited about robots and artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'm excited about the potential of virtual and augmented reality, advanced cloud technologies and sensors, definitely drones and autonomous vehicles, and so many other new and emerging technologies. However, today, the ability to analyze massive amounts of data to derive business insights like never before is what excites me the most. We have been on this journey at UPS for some time now, but the potential is still significant. Data and analytics have helped us improve our business in many ways, and they're also helping us adjust to new business conditions. To do this well, we will continue to need skilled engineers, data scientists, and analysts who will be able to derive insights from complex data sets and simplify them in a way we can act. We will need professionals who can solve some of the most complex problems in supply chain we have ever seen, as customer demands and their needs continue to change. I definitely see great opportunities for Latino graduates in these fields, and I would like to see many of them join UPS. Remember, prosperity is fueled by skills and capabilities that set you apart from your competitors. When I think about the future, I remain optimistic and encouraged. First, as a company, UPS has been able to overcome incredible challenges in our 113-year history. Constant innovation, the amazing dedication of our people, and our never-ending drive to help customers succeed have and will continue to be part of who we are and will help us overcome the current crisis. As a country, I have great faith in the American people, in the spirit of America. What attracted me to the U.S. when I was a young boy growing up in Mexico continues to fuel my hopes and dreams for everyone in our great country. Freedom, opportunity, innovation, the dream of being able to accomplish anything, and the possibility of going from loading trucks to running the IT and engineering functions of a Fortune 50 company make the U.S. a very special place. I am an engineer by trade, and I could not end this conference today without sharing a formula with you. Think about it. R plus I plus 2 times T equals P. What does that mean? Well, resiliency plus innovation plus talent plus technology equal prosperity. Let's continue to create an environment where all these elements will help us prosper. Remember, Latino prosperity is possible. Latino prosperity is real. Latino prosperity will continue to grow. Latino prosperity in Georgia is now. I want to thank you for your time and for your engagement in such an important conference. And please, whatever you do, be safe. Thank you.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. Lost together, we discovered ourselves again. And we realized that the things that matter deserve time.
That looks good.
From now on, we're not going to leave anything on our plates. Because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there. And they never tasted this good.
At Forward US, we're focused on fixing the failed immigration and criminal justice systems that have locked too many out of the American dream for too long, holding us all back. Our immigration system was designed in the middle of the last century. We need one that leads America well into the 21st century. Founded by business and tech leaders, Forward US is a bipartisan team working to create a stronger America. We bring people together from across the aisle to break through partisan gridlock and create an immigration system that fits the need of the modern Georgia economy, Georgia families, and spurs growth and innovation. Having an immigration system that works is vital to attracting talent and investments, and tuition equity for dreamers is a crucial piece of that puzzle. We all win when businesses can hire the workers they need and help the economy stay strong. Together, we can ensure that Georgia will continue to be the #1 state in which to do business. It is an honor to work beside Georgia leaders during this critical moment.
We will get through this with hard work and long hours, by keeping our distance while keeping in touch, by traveling less and moving more. You do your part by staying home, and we'll do our part to keep the lights on, providing you with reliable energy and giving you more ways to use it efficiently. We know home means more now than ever. Count on us to be here so you can be there.